We open on a brutal night, with spearheads clashing against the sky, a full moon illuminating a forest where a formation of spears stands ready, as armored soldiers charge through the darkness, yelling to take down what they consider a demon. But our silver-haired swordsman, Nox Von Reinhafer, is no demon, just a dark, blurred figure dashing across the ground, looking down with a shocked, bloodied expression even as he leaps like a startled deer, soaring through the air above a crowd of armored soldiers, facing an armored knight in combat as he unleashes a dark purple aura blade, slashing through the air with incredible speed, and attacking the armored soldiers with powerful bursts of dark purple energy. Slashes through them, surrounding his enemies with that same ominous purple energy, his face a mask of focus as he continues the relentless fight, slashing horizontally, making purple magical flames erupt on the ground, which sends a massive surge of purple energy striking the earth, blasting soldiers away like ragdolls, as a powerful force rips through their ranks, leaving our weary knight kneeling, hand on the ground, still emanating that dark purple energy, while massive floating eyes hover ominously above him. He looks ahead, breathless and bloodied, with that dark purple aura swirling, gripping his sword handle tightly while looking down, then up, with a shocked and sweat-streaked face as Talia von Stilliner steps into view, standing on the dark battlefield, confronting our bloodied swordsman. She demands, "Why did you make that decision? Why have you made a deal with the devil? Why did you betray us?" While Nox stands tall with his sword, dark eyes looming above him. Nox looks up at the floating eyes with a tired expression and asks, "Betrayal, huh?" He looks down with a smirk, bruised and bloodied, admitting that he guesses that's what it would seem like to them, but then fires back. "It was you guys who betrayed me." Talia is furious, telling him to stop arguing and just tell her since when he became so broken. But Nox speaks with a calm, resolute expression, revealing that the beginning was a flash of bright blue magical light, and the system announces that he has cleared the first part of Inner Lunatic, with a total clear count of 27. This is Yoo Chan, our gaming guru, sitting at a computer desk cluttered with paper and an overflowing ashtray. He managed to clear all the hidden quests, but the calendar on his desk, with the 6th day circled for a hospital visit, reminds him that he's going to die next month. The doctor speaks to Yoo Chan, who stares ahead with a hollow, shocked expression, urging him to listen calmly. Our protagonist looks visibly distressed and tired as the doctor explains they can only prescribe pain relief, and that despite tests at 2 other hospitals, they've gotten the same devastating results. Yoo Chan's hand trembles as he holds the medical paper, and soon a medicine bottle falls, scattering pills across the floor like scattered beads, his hand hanging limply from his chair, a symbol of his despair. He sits in his chair, looking exhausted and hopeless, then hunches over, coughing violently into his hands. He looks at his hand, covered in blood, pale and shocked, before realizing that thinking about it won't change the end result. Our terminally ill protagonist sighs, looking at a blood-stained handkerchief, knowing there's no one for him to reach out to, just depressing flyers for late-stage cancer patient meetings and hospice care. He sits hunched over his desk, surrounded by scattered papers, his hand clenching, trembling with visible intensity, as he decides to start a new game, picking the name Carl. He stares at the screen, contemplating what kind of character he should make this time, diving into the character customization menu, and laughs softly to himself when the system warns him about penalties for choosing powerful traits like mana sensitivity genius and swordsmanship and combat genius. He ignores the warning, clicks his mouse, and reacts with shock as a surge of energy emits from the computer screen, jerking his desk chair forward as he's pulled into the game. Our gaming guru gasps for air, clutching his chest, distressed and confused, muttering in confusion as the synchronization stops at 71%. He wakes up abruptly in a bed, appearing disoriented, and sits up suddenly, looking around the strange room with concern. He sits on the edge of the bed, bewildered by his surroundings, then walks across the room, looking around in confusion, pausing in front of a mirror, startled by his own reflection. Reset villain touches the mirror's surface tremblingly, the thought of becoming the worst character filling his mind, before he reacts in alarm, shouting, "NOX!" He stands in a formal room, looking dejected, recalling that he wanted to make a character like himself. Someone who was dying and didn't have anyone to depend on, and now he observes a status screen in his new room, processing the situation. Mysterious message appears, addressing him and clarifying his new name, Nox. Our bewildered knight looks pensive and confused as the message continues. The message explains that he won't remember the sender, but they have something important to say. He processes the words, a sweat drop on his jawline as the message concludes, "Welcome back." Nox stands facing away from the viewer, staring at the screen, processing the strange message, wondering, "Welcome back? Me?" He still can't believe what the fuck is happening. He just got transported into a game, and now someone is telling him welcome back, as if he's been here before, which just makes him wonder who this mysterious being could be, and what that even means for him. Who put him here? And why him? He doesn't have answers yet, but he's here now. Our terminally ill knight, Nox, is pushing himself in sword training, but he can't escape the harsh reality that he just can't get any stronger. He struggles to even complete a single swing until he drops his sword with an exhausted gasp, collapsing onto the floor. His training sword lies discarded, and our cursed swordsman can't even manage 10 swings before he's completely wiped. It turns out the curse of the week is making everything so much harder than he expected. The Reinhafer family crest symbolizes their mastery of infusing dark magic into their blades, a skill that earned them their formidable reputation. But for our plotting young master, who himself can summon a dark aura around his blade, he honestly couldn't care less about any of it, because all he truly cares about is money. Exhausted from training, our young master sighs, his leg trembling visibly. He calls over a maid, Rona, who has brought water and towels for his training, and whispers for her to come closer, checking if anyone else is around. Rona panics, twisting away like a startled deer, accusing him of wanting to hit her, and she flinches as he reaches out, only to pinch her ear instead. He convinces her to help with his secret plan, which she agrees to with a confused, "Huh." Rona is shocked by his unusual request, still flustered and indignant, but Nox is already happily planning that whatever he ordered will arrive by tomorrow. Our scheming young master sips his drink, lost in thought until he spots the butler. Nox wonders if the stern-faced butler has noticed something unusual about his presence in the training hall, trying to act normal, before bowing slightly. The butler watches him closely, his expression stern and observant. Nox laughs nervously, asking if the butler is joking, as the butler stares back with a cold, unimpressed look. The butler reveals that Lady Talia von Stilliner has arrived at the academy for night training, and warns Nox that if he doesn't participate, there will be consequences. Our future villain understands, and the butler notes that Nox came to the practice hall on his own, which makes him glance sideways with quiet suspicion. But Nox isn't having it, asserting loudly, "Don't you dare attempt to overstep your master as a mere butler." He makes it clear that whatever he does and whatever his intentions are, it's absolutely none of the butler's business. The butler looks down, as Nox walks away, leaving him to ponder. After the confrontation, Nox is visibly shaken, gasping for air and exclaiming, "That was rough. I didn't think that an event like this would happen." He peeks back over his shoulder, wondering if the butler is following him, as he ponders the lady of the Stilliner family's identity. Meanwhile, the Leenharbour twins, Hartz and Allen, are talking about the idiot, who actually came to the academy, smiling deviously while Nox sits exhausted at their table. They are still giving Nox a hard time, and our tired young master can only sigh in response. The maids bow as someone important approaches, and Nox looks up in alarm as his father, the Reinhafer family head, enters the hall. His father isn't alone. Lady Talia von Stilliner stands gracefully beside him. The Reinhafer family head tells Nox to greet Talia with a warm welcome, but for Nox, the sight of Talia is far more complicated. He recognizes her as Talia von Stilliner, the hero of Inner Lunatic, and the character who will eventually plunge a sword into his chest. As the evening settles over the academy, an older man observes that Nox has finally decided to make an appearance, and our determined applicant confirms his presence, listening as the topic of who will receive the last Elidaine Academy entrance ticket comes up. Nox internally declares that it's about time he made that crucial decision, because Elidaine Academy is the most important location in Inner Lunatic, the game he now inhabits. It's where students face all kinds of situations and fight demons, making it the central stage for the main story. He knows he absolutely needs to attend. The older man explains that with the first 2 tickets already used for his other sons, the Reinhafer family has only 1 remaining. Nox focuses, knowing he has to do whatever it takes to get that entrance ticket, and then he boldly declares that he will be the one to attend Elidaine Academy, shocking the Leenharbour twins and drawing a warm smile from Talia. Later, the older man reviews documents, pondering that something has definitely changed about Nox. He thinks that if he hadn't witnessed today's events, he wouldn't have believed it himself. He can't help but wonder, could our strategizing genius have been possessed by a demon? Meanwhile, Nox is still pounding the pavement, running and panting, questioning why running is the only thing he does. He reflects that he doesn't think he has a trait like that. System message flashes. His stamina stat has increased by a paltry 0.1. The catch for using swordsmanship and combat genius is a stamina stat of 4, which, as our cursed hero realizes, is normally easy to reach unless you're as weak as he is. The problem is the curse of the weak, which halves his growth rate. Even with all his effort, his stamina is only 1.5. His mana 3, thanks to his terminally ill trait, capping his stamina at 1.5, making him realize he only increased it by 0.1. But he sees a way around it. He watches a maid zoom past with a cleaning cart, realizing she's faster than he thought, and then spots a table laden with magical items. Poison of the Three-Headed Gorgon, Dew of the Remembering Fairy, a Golem Core, and a Rapid Stamina Growth Scroll. Our experimental young master grins, vowing to use his knowledge to solve all of his problems. The maid warns him that the item is expensive too, but Nox grabs the blue bottle, downs its contents, and the maid screams in horror, "Kaya, young master!" Nox clutches his throat, tasting the concoction, while the maid yells that the core isn't for eating. But Nox is triumphant, realizing it's working perfectly. As the curse of the week disappears, even as the maid panics, convinced the young master might die soon. She asks if he's okay, and our newly uncursed knight just blinks, wondering what the fuss is about. Our terminally ill knight Nox is trying to fix his broken body, so he pours a strange liquid over his head while his maid gasps in shock. The liquid streams down his face as he closes his eyes, and the system confirms his curse is gone, meaning his stamina will finally improve, just as he planned. He even holds a glowing magic scroll, indicating a successful ritual. Nox notes he's eliminated the curse, meaning his stamina should increase faster. Immediately, the maid bursts into tears of relief and throws herself at our genius schemer, clinging to him tightly, her eyes full of tears. She looks utterly shocked but overjoyed, and our calculating knight, feeling a little awkward but also wanting to be kind, decides he should probably go easy on her now that the curse is lifted. He even smiles broadly as he talks to her. Nox looks surprised and breathless, and they both tear through the courtyard like two kids racing to beat curfew. Elsewhere, Talia von Stilliner watches the courtyard, a tight focus on her hand, clearly frustrated by Nox's weak reputation, wondering why someone as weak as him would accept a match against his brothers. She walks toward a gate, dismissing the idea of his victory. Talia rants that he doesn't wield a sword and just runs around, predicting his imminent loss. Meanwhile, two men in uniform speak to Nox, calling him young master. Suddenly, Talia sees Nox sitting on the ground and reacts with surprise, glancing over her shoulder, feeling suspicious and anxious as she moves through the courtyard. The shadow of a person appears on the ground, before finding Nox himself sitting there, looking up as she approaches. She approaches him with a bright smile, proudly introducing herself as Talia. A resourceful young master looks up calmly, and then bows, completely taking her aback. Talia looks confused and taken aback, wondering what the heck just happened. Flustered, she imagines herself surrounded by roses, convinced he must have been too surprised by her beauty to respond properly. She then directly asks him if he's certain he can beat his brothers, and if that's why he accepted the match. Her maid, Emma, echoes her agreement from the background, but when Talia confidently offers her help, Nox flat-out declines, telling her, "No, I decline. I have no interest. SOGET lost, all right." Nox walks away while Talia stands behind him, looking shocked. She glares in annoyance, sputtering, "How dare you? Why you? This is how you treat me when I am offering to help," while Emma finds the chaos delightful. Her face is a picture of angry shock as Nox continues to walk away, leaving her fuming. A resourceful young master pauses to look back with a calm, pensive expression as a system window reveals Talia's incredible talent. He sees she has the potential of one of the four great mages, especially with that fire attribute, which at the very least could reach their level. He knows her fire attribute magic eventually awakens to white flames, engulfing her sword in bright fire. However, Nox realizes that making Talia his ally here would change the story of the future too much, like knocking over a crucial chess piece. He looks concerned as he walks away, pondering the future. 1 month later, in a grand, empty room, Talia walks in, looking on with a focused expression. She's praised by her classmates for how quickly she learns, and a mustachioed instructor observes and praises the talent of the Stilliner family. Talia reflects on the praise regarding her family's talent. She stands in the training arena, holding her sword, but soon drops to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut, her sword lying broken in front of her. Dejectedly, she stands by a window, a close-up on her hand gripping a sword hilt, staring out looking distressed. She remembers the knight's creed, must never be consumed by greed, remaining frugal and sacrificing oneself for the greater good. She wonders how Nox, who only does cardio, could possibly beat his brothers who have trained for years in the way of the sword and form to become proper knights. Mysterious masked figure stands in a dark red aura, stating they don't believe that it's possible. Before the match, an unknown man asks Rodwell for his opinion, and Rodwell confidently states that considering young Master Allen's past performances, he thinks Allen will win. A noble character listens intently, and a woman looks over her shoulder with a side-eye expression. Despite acknowledging that our calculating swordsman Nox has changed, Rodwell still doesn't think he will win. Nox stands looking down, commenting that victory for his opponent would be outrageous, impossible. He stands with his sword pointed at a kneeling man, ready for what's to come. An unknown speaker, a former knight who once walked beside the patriarch, reflects on the art of the blade, which can be ornate or simple. They explain that how long one trains and how long they consider their art decides their level, and there's only one way to flip everything around and make someone who is ahead of them kneel. Rodwell admits the possibility isn't zero, at least if the underdog knight was born with Reinhafer blood. A resourceful young master questions his supposedly high luck stat, sarcastically wondering if his luck is actually in the negatives. Meanwhile, the maid cries while running, complaining that she has to keep going with him, even as a system message confirms her stamina is increasing. Nox playfully teases her, asking who would take care of him if she didn't, then quickly gives her one more task. The maid looks at him in surprise or hesitation, and Nox thinks her stamina must be pretty good, wondering if he should take a look. He then looks frustrated, realizing the maid's starting stamina stat of 4.5 is higher than his, even after a month of intense training, finding the situation incredibly upsetting. He looks off into the distance, deep in thought. A smiling young man with light hair speaks to Nox, pointing to himself, asking if he can speak. He confesses he wants to impress the daughter of the Stormbringer family. Our calculating knight looks sideways, appearing cautious or skeptical, as the man mockingly asks if Nox also has a crush on her, proudly displaying his own stamina stat of 8. The man stands with his hand on the hilt of his sword, confident. Man addresses Nox and Elidaine Von Reinhafer in a formal setting, telling the two of them they must accept whatever the results of the challenge may be. Nox grips his sword, thinking that if he loses here, it's all over, and he needs to find his lost memories and the person who sent the letter before his one-year grace period ends and he dies. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly. An unknown character observes Nox with a concerned expression. Then the command, begin, is given. Nox holds his sword in a defensive position, then lunges forward, attacking during the duel. He continues his aggressive offensive movement. Nox focuses intensely during his sword training, crouching low, readying his next move. He practices, engaging in a high-speed duel, exchanging strikes, knowing this is the only consistent thing about the damned inner lunatic game. He stares ahead, focused and determined, and confidently states he can have everything. His opponent taunts him, asking, "Did I hit your head too many times?" The duel continues as his opponent promises, "Maybe you'll feel better once I hit you some more," to which Nox lets out a grunt of effort, bracing himself like a tree in a storm. A woman observes the scene with a pensive expression, thinking her worries about how the youngest had changed were useless. She muses about who will be her son, as an elderly man watches with a stern, thoughtful look. The woman smiles, hinting at hidden ambitions for her family's future. A man in a suit and monocle watches, while a silver-haired man asks if this is all Nox can do. A resourceful young master readies his sword in a training stance, then lunges forward with his sword during an intense training spar. He stands amidst swirling dark energy after a powerful strike. Exhausted, Nox catches his breath from the powerful dark sword of domination, while an older observer looks on. The older observer turns away as Nox stands near him. The system confirms a stamina increase, and his trait, swordsmanship and combat genius, has been activated. Bathed in the golden aura of his genius ability, Nox laughs triumphantly, asking his opponent if they've lost their mind. Then his ultimate skill, Hour of the Genius, activates. Nox focuses deeply as the golden clockwork skill aura manifests, a close-up on his sword held during his skill activation. Observers watch from a stone balcony as Nox exercises his skill. Nox holds his sword up, ready to strike within his enhanced perception. Close-up on Nox's face as he remains calm and focused, as he moves with supernatural precision, explaining it's a skill that slows down everything he perceives. He grips his sword, clarifying that he moving faster are different matters. Our terminally ill knight Nox is mid-duel with his brother Alan, but even with his ultimate skill, Hour of the Genius, active, a searing pain shoots through his arm, though he grips his sword tighter, refusing to let it show, his glowing purple eyes fixed on the fight, as he knows he cannot drop his guard. He's aware this heightened state only lasts 5 minutes, and he needs to finish this decisive fight before the golden hourglass runs out. So with a determined stance, our strategic genius makes a calculated gamble. He faces both his older twin brothers, Alan and Hearts, and boldly declares, "Please come AT me all AT once," much to their shock, so they can finish this quickly. Then he looks up to his father in the gallery, formally requesting permission to face both brothers simultaneously. His father watches with a stern, analytical gaze, as Talia and another observer look on, thinking that our hero must have something incredible up his sleeve, making the duel worth watching. The observant lord remains in the gallery, keeping a close eye on his son, as a woman beside him looks stunned, and the entire training hall buzzes with anticipation. Nox stands ready with his sword, Stormbringer, facing down the Leenharbour twins, who prepare for a coordinated attack. Our swordsman on borrowed time takes a focused stance, anticipating the coming clash. The twins move in for a simultaneous strike, but Nox expertly parries both, their swords clashing in a brilliant flash of energy, as he gracefully maneuvers through their combined onslaught, dodging and deflecting with ease. The brothers desperately try to coordinate their attacks, Alan telling Hearts to get closer, only to be snapped at. Nox focuses intensely, deflecting yet another sword strike, and a system window confirms his swordsmanship proficiency has increased, making him internally cheer. He continues his high-speed exchange with the twins, a whirlwind of motion, and then with a decisive move he strikes one of them, sending him reeling. Both twins stand back, visibly exhausted and shocked by Nox's unexpected skill, while Talia watches from the stands, crying out, "NNOX?" in anxious disbelief. Our hero smiles confidently, well aware that everyone in the gallery is wondering how he, the family's humiliation, changed so much. The Leenharbour twin eyes Nox cautiously as they momentarily pause, and Nox stares him down, the twin visibly startled by his intensity. They quickly reposition themselves, determined to resume their assault. But Nox parries another strike with fluid, effortless motion, dominating the duel and forcing both twins onto the defensive. He stands with his sword poised, preparing for the next phase of the spar, and realizes something surprising. Is fun? Suddenly, red slashes cut through the air, and Nox looks to the side in disbelief. As Talia and the other onlookers watch from the balcony, their expressions now etched with shock and concern. An older man watches the duel closely, his focus tight and unwavering as Nox drops to one knee, clutching his side or chest, his face showing the strain of the fight. The Leenharbour twins crouch on the ground, looking utterly exhausted and distressed, cursing their situation. Nox stands tall in the training hall, breathing heavily as the system declares that hour of the genius has ended. Close-up reveals his calm, focused face, even amidst his exhaustion, as the observers on the balcony look on with expressions of surprise and awe. Nox stands over one of the twins, who reacts nervously, almost instinctively agreeing with something. The training hall is filled with Academy students, all shouting, "Young Master Nox Von Reinhafer," in a chorus of newfound respect. But our hero looks down with a pained and stressed expression, feeling the toll of his ability. His hand reaches out, barely able to keep his grip as his sword falls, clattering against the stone floor of the training area. An older man watches the scene unfold with a smug, knowing expression, while Nox looks ahead with a slight, strained smile, trying to mask his discomfort. He clutches his chest again, clearly feeling the heavy physical cost of his actions, then walks alone toward a large, ornate stone gate, doing his best to hide his pain. Talia watches him go with an intense, worried expression, as Nox stands before the gate, his back to the viewer. She reacts with urgent concern, realizing she needs to get a hold of Nox right away. Outside the Elidaine Academy building, Nox struggles, coughing painfully, and leans forward, clutching his leg or knee as he gasps for air. Looks at his hand in distress and asks, "Is this blood?" A system window displays the shocking penalty for using his skill, stating, "Due to the recoil of the skill Hour of the Genius, the player's life has been decreased by 2 days and 17 hours. Nox, looking utterly exhausted, realizes this recoil debuff is the skill's worst flaw, as it permanently reduces his lifespan and makes him prone to sickness. He covers his mouth with his hand, thinking in relief that no one saw the recoil happen. But then his eyes widen in shock, as if sensing someone. Talia approaches him in the training hall, her face full of concern, and directly asks, "Did you get injured?" Our determined hero looks visibly annoyed and frustrated, clearly caught off guard. Terminally ill Knight is blindsided, realizing that Talia of all people has found him in his weakened state, as she wonders how he could win a fight between siblings with such a broken body, leaving him internally yelling in surprise. But even before this awkward hallway moment, Talia had been watching our pale swordsman with a blush and a lot of confusion. She often saw him around the academy, always looking a little flustered herself. It turns out Talia has been observing our frail young master for a while, admitting that she'd never seen him truly wield a sword, only clumsily swing a wooden one in the academy courtyard. Sometimes she'd even run through the courtyard, maybe trying to catch him, maybe trying to escape her own feelings. She'd been watching him even when he thought he was alone, which makes our pale swordsman internally wonder what's happening. But always he was in her sights, observed from a distance. She looks on with growing concern as Nox leans against a wall. Then suddenly, and her concern for his sudden power-up was growing. Coughs violently, like his lungs are trying to escape. Despite his pain, they share a brief, symbolic touch of hands, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Talia fidgets with her gloved hands, admitting it's hard for her to get along with others. She just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, and he was the only thing on her mind, especially when she makes mistakes. Nox stands before her, silently taking it all in. He realizes that's why she's only been doing stamina training, and she confesses that she struggles to make those kinds of mistakes. A frail young master internally notes that while she has the traits of a knight, it must be hard for the proud daughter of a duke to admit she's wrong, seeing her so honest, just like he remembered from the game. Her surprise was evident as she tried to make sense of his impossible growth. He holds her gaze, acknowledging her vulnerability. Talia walks away from our pale swordsman, but not before an internal voice reminds her to keep her promise. She'd glance back, unable to tear her eyes away, knowing he was hiding something big. The Elidaine Academy bustles under the twilight sky. Back at his desk, our terminally ill knight muses that his guess was correct, as the man in the suit nearby questions Nox's talent. And even a distinguished gentleman with a monocle takes notice of our determined player. The man continues to speak, contrasting Nox's abilities with other children around his age, while our frail young master looks on with a thoughtful, cynical expression. Nox then sharply interjects, demanding that they do nothing but observe him, no matter what he does. Nox, however, is focused on his own path, clutching his gloved hand, looking down with a calm, almost calculating expression. He grips his fist, ready to make a crucial decision about his stats. With a sudden, resolute shift, our pale swordsman stands up, surprising the man with the monocle. Reading a status update, our terminally ill knight sighs, frustrated that it took a whole month just to increase his stamina by 2 points, feeling they should have just given it to him earlier. Alone in his room, our hero navigates the glowing game menus, and with a confident tap, he selects the luck stat. However, he then spots a stat that brings a genuine exclamation of BUT luck from him, realizing that this one isn't a stat that can be increased with mere hard work. He considers the implications, knowing exactly what this boost will allow him to do. He sees the system confirming a mass clear benefit 27 times, gifting him a random gacha voucher and a one-time use skill confirmation voucher, which he receives with a sense of relief. Suddenly, a glowing magical gacha machine materializes in his room, like something out of a carnival, and our frail young master approaches it with wary fascination. Staring at the surreal sight, he admits, seeing this in person, it feels so alien. He knows that with his luck stat at its highest, the chance of an intermediate rank or above appearing is vastly improved. With his newly upgraded luck, the gacha machine activates, pulsing with magical energy, with ranks going from white for basic, silver for intermediate, all the way up to rainbow for the highest. The shining capsule rolls out, promising something rare. It's a moment of pure anticipation as the glowing capsule is dispensed. As he looks down intently, a glowing capsule rolls out of the machine, and our terminally ill knight gasps. "It appeared." He cracks it open, revealing a scroll that immediately triggers a rank identification. Opening the capsule, he discovers an advanced trait called Supreme Ruler's Awe, making him ecstatic at the discovery. And a genuinely happy, surprised grin spreads across our lucky gamer's face. Holding the scroll, he stands triumphant, a tangible reward for his calculated risk. System prompt then appears, asking if he would like to use the one-time skill confirmation voucher. The rolled-up scroll, tied with red, glows with an unmistakable golden light, and Nox exudes a quiet confidence, the faint images of his rivals already fading behind his new power. Some time passes after the Elidaine Academy graduation ceremony, with knights training and traveling around the land, and our frail young master looks thoughtful. He ponders aloud with ironic certainty. "I probably don't need to worry about Talia anymore, right?" Talia, however, looks concerned and embarrassed by his harsh question. It's a quiet night at Elidaine Academy, but Nox stands bothered, his eyes closed, clearly wishing for peace before the confrontation. But then he turns to see Talia standing in the hallway, and he sighs, wondering what she wants from him. And she looks down, her expression visibly tense after his outburst. Our pale swordsman is met with her direct question as she demands, "Tell me, how did you become so strong so quickly?" But far away, a mysterious figure in a suit, fedora, and white mask adjusts their hat against a black backdrop. Talia corners our resolute knight, demanding, "Tell me how I can become stronger." He looks down with a hesitant expression, which makes her question his silence. But he simply walks away as she pursues him down the hall, pleading for him to at least share his training methods. Our cool-headed strategist glances back at her, internally fretting over how to comfort someone, wondering what to say to Talia, and then he realizes he's never comforted anyone, wondering what to say. He concludes with gentle advice, "Don't compare yourself to others." Nox walks away quickly, leaving a deeply blushing Talia in his wake, and then, as he walks alone, he wonders if she'll come after him. Our sagely young master then becomes stoic and focused, deciding it would be better to let her see him earn the hidden piece, even if she might try to kill him for it. Later, at the Reinhafer family barn, a butler bows to our discerning knight, who then calmly announces to the students and staff that they will now choose the horse they will be with forever, leaving one student looking especially nervous. Magnificent horses stand in the stable, revered as the holiest animals on the continent, and within the Reinhafer family, chosen young by knights and mages as lifelong companions, especially for the big wars to come in the later part of the game. A system our patient tactician recognizes from his past life, and he finds the system a weirdly realistic inconvenience. As he looks pensive, Nox stands in the pasture, observing the horses, while Hearts and Alan look displeased nearby, and our quietly determined hero remains calm. As an observer wonders which one the youngest will choose, with a stable hand present, and the horses milling around in the yard, which Nox judges to be pretty cute, good horses, until he spots a specific one with a gasp of surprise. Nox finds the dark, distinct horse standing alone, confirming, "There it is." Our quietly determined hero approaches it, declaring, "I will choose this one," as he reaches out to it, leaving two onlookers in shock, while a stern man watches intently and then makes a sudden gesture. Nox observes the horse, considering that his decision might seem poor, even though he knows most summoned creatures are divided into ranks and can grow more than one, with high insight into this target's stats. And he smiles confidently at his target, knowing its potential growth and recognizing it as an obsidian, the most rare kind out there, named after a specific igneous rock. As Nox glances sideways, an onlooker speculates that had the patriarch known this, he would have taken this horse, while our sagely young master smiles subtly, reflecting that this new trait is more annoying than the terminally ill trait. As he stands calmly next to his chosen companion, focused on his path, while the stern older man continues to watch him with a tense expression. An onlooker questions if our discerning knight is projecting himself onto the horse, calling him emotional and weak, a true disappointment, while the stern man looks visibly disappointed, and two students react with surprise and worry, but Nox looks troubled, considering if his decision was really that disappointing, as an unknown voice urges the young master to choose a horse. Instead, our quietly determined hero calls the horse by its name, Rodwell, as he pets it, and the horse nudges his hand gently, leaving Nox looking pensive. Our patient tactician kneels and interacts gently with the horse, which soon rests under a white blanket in its stable, and he begins to reflect thoughtfully, looking ahead with a focused expression. Nox reflects that the horse, like him, is struggling to live, fighting to survive a bit longer. But then a maid trips and falls like a sack of potatoes with a cry of pain, prompting our sagely young master to question if she falls every time. He points toward the horse as the maid cleans the floor. The maid complains about having to clean up the mess, while the horse looks up from its stable, and she looks concerned and hesitant as Nox looks thoughtfully on, and she asks the horse if it's hungry, completely unaware that what happens next is going to be quite the shock. Distraught maid, Rona, cradles the lifeless body of Carl, crying out that her beloved horse is gone. Our silver-haired genius, ever the pragmatist, observes her grief, internally noting that Rona had put a lot of effort into caring for Carl, but realizes that it's too late to save him. Carl is truly gone. Nox then turns to the crying maid, telling her to get up, his expression serious, as Rona looks up at him with teary, surprised eyes. A slight smirk plays on his lips as he reveals a mysterious scroll, which Rona immediately questions. Our focused prodigy places his hand on the magical scroll, preparing to infuse it with his mana. Rona reacts with shock, as Nox struggles on the ground, sweat beading on his face, internally pushing himself to try one more time, his aura flaring intensely as he tries to control his mana, reminding himself that he needs to focus. Our young master understands his current limitations. He still hasn't awakened his genius of mana detection trait. The Empire forbids mana use below 15 years of age unless one is from the imperial family, whose descendants are naturally several times more proficient at magic than other students. Despite this, our determined prodigy presses on, his brow furrowed with sweat, aiming to pour as much mana as he can into the scroll. He smirks, finding the raw sensation of mana flow interesting. He immediately decides to use the one-time use skill confirmation voucher. His hand is engulfed in swirling purple energy as a system window appears, revealing he has obtained the skill Book of the Dead Necromicron, a one-time use black magic, and confirms that the target, Carl, can be revived as an undead. Another prompt asks if he would like to use this magic, and he knows he mustn't make any mistake. Undead beings in inner Lunatic are resurrected through black and dark magic, and while they don't lack a sense of self, they are reborn even stronger, remaining blindly loyal to their master. Only the Dark Marva's family is known for reviving corpses as undead, and while the Reinhafers are also a dark family, they are not able to use such skills. The item Nox obtained is precisely a Necromicron, also known as the Book of the Dead, glowing with a powerful purple aura. A relentless schemer kneels on the magical array as dark shadowy hands emerge, clutching at Carl's spirit. Rona watches worriedly, calling out to her young master. Nox struggles, pushing himself, determined to go a little more, like a weightlifter straining for one last rep. As he presses his hand firmly onto the glowing magic circle, his eyes burning with intense determination. Then the spectral undead horse rises into the air, surrounded by purple and blue magical flames, and a system message confirms the skill was activated successfully, reviving Carl as an undead. Our silver-haired genius gasps for air and exclaims, "I did it!" He touches his chin thoughtfully, claiming the newly revived creature, and its stats appear before him, announcing, "I'll be your master from now on." But then Carl makes a sound and surprisingly nuzzles against Rona, not him. Nox asks Carl what it thinks it's doing. Rona, distressed and still crying, scolds our young master. "How can you use mana so recklessly?" Carl nudges Rona, who reacts with irritation, as Nox simply smiles, casually adjusting his clothing, relieved to have succeeded, before making his way upstairs near a stable. Examining a glowing magical stone, Nox puts a piece of paper into a dark bag, feeling relieved, already determined to find the second hidden piece of the Reinhafer family, a mysterious ring glowing with a dark purple aura, which he knows he must obtain. As he moves through the dark forest, Nox pauses, hand on his sword, looking around nervously, reflecting on his situation. He thinks this is not a game anymore, it's reality, and asserts, "I don't want to die a second time." A terminally ill knight steps into a dark, foggy forest, a forbidden and notoriously difficult area within the Reinhafer territory that even skilled rangers struggle to navigate, because it's designed to make everyone feel lost and helpless, like a child. But Nox knows this forest holds a different, more important meaning for him. He knows this missing child's forest is perfect because the monster difficulty here only scales up if you're an adult, and he can still find rare artifacts here. Our metagamer thinks it's at least 2.5 stars, which is no joke in a game known for its brutal difficulty. Considering his terminal illness, this is the ideal spot to exploit its unique mechanics, though he quickly wraps a cloth around a stick and ignites it into a makeshift torch, letting the bright flame cut through the oppressive darkness, revealing his immediate surroundings. He watches the smoke from his torch carefully, using it as a guide, and then, with a confident smile, he chooses the path directly opposite to its drift. But before our calculating knight takes another step, he turns his head, calling out to anyone listening to reveal themselves. The forest remains silent, but Nox's calm gaze holds steady. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a powerful sword strike cuts through the dense vegetation, a demonstration of raw power that has just failed to impress the one person it was aimed at. Maid asked our fiery noblewoman, Talia, why she's so upset. She's practically begging Talia to stop following young Master Nox around, because if she keeps it up, the maid Emma is going to get scolded too. Talia reassures her that she won't get fired, but quickly changes the subject. Emma laments that Talia is already talented enough to be the next matriarch, if only another noblewoman, Miss Chell, wasn't around. The maid sighs, hoping Talia has given up and gone to sleep for the night, but when she opens the door to check, the room is completely empty. She looks worried, realizing Talia has vanished. Soon, there's a huge commotion as everyone wakes up, because Talia has gone to find Nox. And just like that, our flustered pursuer emerges into the forest, with leaves in her hair, a sheathed knife strapped to her thigh, and a sheepish laugh. Nox's eyes widen, startled by her sudden appearance in the dangerous woods, but his focus quickly shifts. He senses something ominous lurking in the dark foliage, and instantly pulls Talia behind him, drawing his sword and ordering her to get back. Massive wolf paws step onto the ground, and the tail of a large gray wolf flickers in the shadows. Huge, aggressive gray wolf crouches in the darkness, snarling menacingly, and Talia, horrified, realizes they've entered gray wolf territory. The wolf prowls dangerously close to her dress, its bared fangs a clear warning. It throws its head back, opening its maw wide to let out a chilling howl as Nox and Talia brace themselves. The gray wolf snarls again, but Nox remains calm and focused. Talia looks on, concerned, and then reacts in shock as Nox suddenly moves. He swings his sword, creating a powerful flash of light that strikes the attacking wolf, his blade engulfed in a golden aura. The wolf recoils from the powerful blow. Talia stares at Nox with a mix of admiration and surprise, amazed that he defeated the wolf so cleanly. Nox turns to her, and she explains that she was just out for a night stroll, laughing awkwardly. But our sickly swordsman leans forward, clutching his side, clearly exhausted from the effort. Talia reaches out to grab his arm, and Nox looks startled. His expression is tired and unreadable. Talia quickly explains in a flustered, chibai state that she isn't doing anything weird, but she just saw him become so strong and wanted to learn his secret training method. And when she looked out the window and saw him leaving for the forest, she just had to follow. Nox looks down at her gently, standing there exhausted and a little bloody from the fight. He reflects that since she's one of the core characters, he can't just leave her here, so he tells her to follow him for now. But then he turns away, making his position perfectly clear. He tells her directly that he isn't trying to help her. Our terminally ill knight stands protecting Talia from more gray wolves in the dark forest, as one growls menacingly from the shadows. Talia looks concerned, but Nox, with blood on his cheek, pushes her away and tells her to get back. He takes a moment to refocus despite the unexpected variable of Talia's presence. He knows that because this is a prologue area, there won't be any boss monsters, but he expects an elite gray wolf, one rank below a boss, to appear. This will be an evolved form of the wolf he just cut down, and he watches as it stalks past smaller wolves. Two gray wolves snarl in the darkness, and Nox swings his sword, knowing that things won't go smoothly for him, and that there are times one must realize they've been driven into a corner. A gray wolf lunges through the forest, and Nox, gripping his bloodied sword hilt, recalls a phrase he always repeated back when he was Yoo Chan playing inner Lunatic. "I am a fucking weakling." He executes a powerful, glowing sword strike, cutting through the darkness. He breathes out heavily after the intense exertion. Talia, holding her torch, looks on with wide, impressed eyes, thinking it's amazing. She wonders if he's killed gray wolves before, but then realizes he must be holding back, because his sword technique was even more incredible when he fought his brothers. Nox tells her again to get away from him, and Talia flinches as he calmly states that it's finally here. A giant claw belonging to the elite gray wolf appears in the shadows, and its massive paw slams down like a wrecking ball, crashing into the forest floor. Nox shouts "Elite Gray Wolf" as it and other wolves surround him. Meanwhile, Academy guards arrive with torches at the forest edge, urgently calling out for the young master and young miss. They find mysterious footprints on the forest floor, and a concerned official realizes that Lady Talia went into the forest with young Master Nox. The maid is utterly shocked, exclaiming, "No way!" She sits on the ground in disbelief as the official looms over her. He knows that the missing child's forest is ranked one of the highest difficulties within the powerful Reinhafer family, a place even they haven't been able to clear yet. He contemplates that the fact that only children can enter and successfully clear the forest isn't known to them yet. He examines Nox's tracks, noting that he moved with careful intention, and there are no traces of anyone getting past the estate's strongest mana barrier. He realizes, with a stern expression, that young Master Nox went into the forest intentionally. The official turns his head, and then walks away from the distraught maid. Nox, holding his torch, needs to find his way, while the maid looks deeply worried, and a group of people with torches search the forest. He clutches her hand to her chest, crying out that she's the one who caused the young miss to die. Talia, meanwhile, holds her torch with a wary, determined expression. Nox looks at her, noting that she hasn't lost her concentration despite being scared. He internally muses that killing an elite wolf isn't that dangerous, even if it's a 2.5-star threat. He just wants Talia to remain vigilant and able to react to her surroundings, although he admits she's not at the level where he can trust her to cover his back yet. He glances at her with a serious, evaluating expression, then turns his head with a cold, determined gaze. Golden clock gears manifest around him as his Hour of the Genius skill activates, A calculating knight grips his sword, now enveloped in a bright golden aura, intending to use this skill to kill the elite wolf in one go. An elite wolf stares ahead with glowing golden eyes, as Nox and Talia look towards the imminent threat with tense expressions. Elite wolves prowl through the dark undergrowth, and Nox smiles with a sharp, dangerous expression as he prepares to strike. A wolf is struck and launched through the air like a cannonball, as Nox lunges with his sword, surrounded by a powerful golden aura. He engages elite wolves in combat, wielding his sword with bright golden aura strikes. Two wolves pause, and Nox, with blood on his face, wonders if they've stopped. Close-up of an elite wolf, staring intently with glowing eyes. Nox moves swiftly with his golden aura sword, deflecting attacks from the wolves. A wolf is struck and launched through the air during the intense skirmish, and Nox slashes at another approaching wolf. He pivots while surrounded, his sword still glowing with a golden aura. An elite wolf lunges with bared fangs, catching Nox's alarm. He strikes a wolf with his sword as it jumps at him, his face remaining focused and resolute in combat. Talia looks on, appearing distressed and surprised by the ongoing combat, and hides in a tree while wolves scratch at the trunk below her. He stares ahead with a determined expression as Nox looks towards the tree, his face showing genuine concern for Talia. As our bloodied protagonist takes a moment to breathe after his golden flash attack, Talia, still holding her glowing light, immediately rushes to him, worried he's hurt, which makes him reflect on showing her his pathetic side. I showed her my pathetic side, huh? He thinks. But before he can dwell, Nox clutches his arm as the recoil from his powerful skill hits him, like a sudden jolt. Just as a menacing, massive gray wolf beast emerges from the darkness, its huge claw stepping into the light, looking like it's finally getting up for round 2, and our genius knight prepares to face it down. The beast lunges with terrifying speed, catching our exhausted swordsman completely off guard, as he struggles to keep up with its blur of motion, realizing in a panic that he's too slow to match its movements, and is barely able to defend himself from its relentless assault. From her vantage point, Talia cries out his name in alarm as the wolf continues its rapid attack, leaving Nox injured and exhausted in the mist, prompting him to grumble about the boss's paltry 2.5 stars rating, declaring it needs to be revised. Our time-limited hero realizes this elite gray wolf is far smarter and more cunning than it was in the game, actively using the terrain to its advantage and controlling its pack earlier, which means he needs to get his guard up fast. He manages to land a hit, striking the wolf with a golden burst of energy, like a laser beam. But the beast immediately counters, lunging with wide-open jaws and exploiting our hero's overconfidence, leaving him bleeding as he realizes the recoil from his big swing made him vulnerable. The recoil, he gasps. As the wolf charges in again, Nox, bleeding from the mouth, chastises himself for his foolish judgment, just as a dagger suddenly strikes the beast in the back of its neck, making him realize the unexpected variable wasn't his doing. And Talia, with a serious and focused expression, reveals she was the one who created the opening. Seizing the moment, Nox delivers a powerful, golden finishing blow, striking the now screaming wolf through its center, leaving him kneeling and utterly exhausted in the grass beside the defeated beast. Talia, running up with her torch, looks on with concern and relief, asking if he's okay, which makes our weary knight accidentally blurt out thanks to the enemy who will kill him in the future, leaving her utterly confused and hurt, even as she continues to fret over his bloody injuries. He tries to backtrack, but the damage is done. As Nox and Talia navigate the dark woods, our recovering swordsman is met with a new challenge. Talia screams in terror and clings to him because of a tiny spider, prompting him to tease her about her knight potential. You definitely won't be able to become a knight, he jokes, before he coughs from the lingering recoil of his fight. Talia, worried for the sickly hero, frets over his health and clutches his hand, making him reflect internally that he survived thanks to her, even if he couldn't say it aloud amidst the chaos as his internal thoughts echo. I survived, thanks to her. Finally bathed in sunlight, our duo exits the missing child's forest, with Nox just thinking they need to get out. Meanwhile, outside the forest, a distraught maid and a concerned official fret over Talia's disappearance and the potential problems between the families, especially with rumors of the Reinhafer family's incompetence. Then a shout cuts through the worry, announcing that the fog of the forest is lifting, and the mana energy around the missing child's forest is finally dissipating. The maid cries tears of pure relief as they realize what this means. They spot Nox and Talia emerging unscathed, holding hands as they walk out of the woods, making the official exclaim in disbelief at our stoic swordsman, who comes out like nothing happened. He muses that this event will cause great turmoil in the Reinhafer family hierarchy, while maid Emma rushes to embrace a crying Talia, who is surprised to see her. Nox observes that his family's reputation as a dark family is about to go down thanks to this, then gently comforts a flustered and apologetic Talia, telling her not to beat herself up too much about her reactions. Back at Elidaine Academy, our tactical genius feels a pang of pain. He wonders if Talia is the cause. But then he pulls a small black ring from his pocket, the hidden artifact known as the Black Flame Ring, which the system confirms he's obtained. This low-intermediate accessory, shrouded in a dark purple aura, allows him to steal a small amount of life force from defeated targets and convert it into his own, a power he knows won't extend his lifespan infinitely. But he privately thinks that just having this ring is far better than a life that's hopeless on the verge of death. Our suffering swordsman equips the Black Flame Ring, immediately feeling his life force and mana increase, then boldly calls for his maid, Rona, who appears shocked and questions if he can see through things. She then exclaims in surprise at his request. Rona, flustered but agreeing to an arm-wrestling rematch, warns him about losing, then starts the countdown. They lock hands and the match begins, but Rona immediately senses something strange. Nox, with a cryptic smile, declares he's decided not to care about trivial things like honor anymore. Right after his bold statement, our hero immediately faces a setback as his frequent sickness trait activates, striking him down like a sudden gust of wind, bringing on a wrist fracture and the flu, leaving him looking ill and distressed as Rona worries about his health. Amidst a moment of digital distortion, he recalls his true name, Yoo Chan. It's been 6 months since our terminally ill knight gained his new powers, but regretfully, he hasn't had a single chance to use them. He lets out an annoyed sigh, stepping out of his room with an irritated expression, which startles his maidservant. Nox snaps at her about adapting to his preferences, but she fires back, complaining the patriarch is too harsh. Our brilliant student, however, has been working hard to adapt to this new life, even if it's stressing him out. Clutches his chest in frustration, cursing the system for being more interested in his life than he is, as it helpfully reminds him. The remaining life you have left due to terminal illness is 147 days. He springs to his feet with renewed determination, just as a knock sounds at his door. A servant enters, bowing to inform him that the patriarch has summoned him. Nox listens intently, unaware that his arrival is stirring unsettling memories for the patriarch. He envisions a battlefield strewn with fallen bodies, a lone knight lying lifeless on the ground, and then, shockingly, an image of Nox himself standing amidst the chaos, sword in hand, his face grim and resolute. The vision shifts to our young master standing with his back to the viewer, ominous dark energy swirling behind him. The patriarch sits with his eyes closed, haunted by the memory of demons swarming, humans caught in the slaughter, and a night of pure terror, the chilling images reflected in his mind's eye. Dark energy begins to emanate from him as he sits on his throne, pondering how he can't rely on probabilities. I need talent that is certain, and hoping that someday one of his sons will learn the supreme black sword. Just then, a servant announces that the young master will soon be here. The patriarch looks at a plaque from the missing child's forest, reflecting on how Nox cleared a place he himself doesn't know how to clear, and decides a reward is in order. He explains to Nox that the delay was due to strong objections from the family's vassals, who couldn't believe the supposed good-for-nothing had changed, and thus ordered an investigation to confirm his achievements. As he reads the report, the patriarch acknowledges that even he can't ignore the family's vassals, making the investigation a necessary process, just as Nox enters the office. Our determined young master bows respectfully and is told to rise. The patriarch critiques Nox's past actions, stating that he's sure Nox knows they were wrong. Nox, however, surprises him by flatly declaring, "I'll fulfill just one request of yours, no matter what it is." He's internally shocked, realizing that even after thousands of hours in inner Lunatic, he's never seen Theo, the patriarch, give a reward before, wondering if this unexpected generosity is some kind of trap. Nox maintains his calm composure, as the patriarch continues, proclaiming that as the head of the Reinhafer family, his evaluation of Nox is changing. Nox can't help but smile slightly at the unexpected turn of events. The patriarch continues to speak, and Nox listens with a calm, watchful expression. The next day, under the bright academy sky, Nox stands with the patriarch as Talia approaches them. She looks toward someone, a bright smile on her face. Talia beams at Nox and lets out a happy laugh. An elderly gentleman steps up, advising Nox that he ought to answer a lady when she asks a question. Our exasperated hero turns his head with a bored expression, teasing Talia about her fear, wondering how she could still be so motivated after seeing a super huge spider. Talia responds by playfully elbowing him in the ribs, causing him to wince as the surprise jab stings like a quick flick to the funny bone, and quip that another super huge spider would have been better than that. Talia's face flushes bright red in embarrassment. Nox clutches his chest in mock alarm, wondering internally if she's actually trying to kill him. Later, our swordsman on borrowed time stands before his maid and Talia. His maid smiles warmly at him. Nox lets out a contemplative sigh as a carriage departs from an ornate golden gate. He reflects that one person is now gone and wonders if he's slowly getting used to this weird new life, confessing that he's even kind of enjoying it. His moment of peace is shattered when he freezes, stunned by the system's updated message. The remaining life you have left due to terminal illness is 146 days. As the academy building stands tall under a bright sky, he internally notes the new countdown, realizing he has no time to rest. He turns to a young maid, surprising her with the instruction that she needs to get a new maid and new servants. He ponders with a hand on his chin as a butler bows politely, and a white-gloved hand is offered in greeting to a maid. Our time-limited tactician is stuck reflecting on the Dire system update, knowing he only has 140 days left, but at least he's growing pretty fast, which is great, because Elidaine Academy is right around the corner. He's telling his current maid about his future plans, and she's so excited she tugs on his sleeve, overjoyed that she gets to serve him. Nox reassures her that he's not cutting her salary, which she accepts with a tearful salute, but our genius-level swordsman is thinking about the next 2 months, knowing he won't survive Elidaine Academy, where all the strongest cadets gather, unless he dramatically increases his stats. He also remembers he still has to play the villain Nox Von Reinhafer in the main story, which makes him sigh under the pressure. So he tells a new maid that he needs a completely new household staff. As he thinks about it, Rodwell, the butler, asks what's the matter, just as an elegant new maid greets Nox, and introduces herself as Jitri de la Villia, Nox's new exclusive maid. Our calculating young master looks ahead with a stoic expression, his intense lavender eyes taking everything in, while Jitri smiles softly and politely at him. Elsewhere, one of the world's strongest villains, Theo von Reinhafer, reveals he knows Jitri and she won't be allowed to leave this place easily, and Jitri, listening attentively, is spoken down to by Theo. She reacts with a shocked, sweating expression, saying only, "No." Theo then walks away into the shadows, leaving the maid looking up in shock before she drops to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut, clutching her chest in pained submission. As he leaves, Theo's hand rests on the doorframe and he says, "Don't forget who your master is." Back in his room, Nox lies in bed, recognizing Jitri as a spy, and tells himself he must not waver any further. He considers the demon possessions that happen frequently in inner Lunatic, and how Nox is supposed to have his body stolen by Bale, which makes him sit up in bed, looking surprised, and a bead of sweat rolls down his worried face. He then thinks that Jitri is the problem, but not in the way one might assume, thinking it would be a waste to throw her away because she's not even involved in the main storyline. A magical book details her tragic past, showing how she lost her position as the next head of the Lavilia family when her parents were killed by her uncle. The narrator explains that despite her cheerful exterior, she is jaded, rotten inside, and on the verge of breaking, and her last decision was supposed to happen before the first part of the main story. He sees an image of a cloaked figure lying dead on the floor and asks himself, "What should I do?" He then wonders if creating a change to the storyline by saving someone who ought to be dead would be the correct decision. The next day, despite knowing such a choice could put a noose around his own neck, our future villain stands before 2 maids, who are startled by whatever he just told them. One maid gestures in surprise, while the other cries in the background, clearly distraught. Nox looks on calmly, observing one maid's shaking hands, and remarks on her immediate answer. He stands with his arms crossed, smiling as the maids look at him in distress, one clutching her chest in shock as she asks how he could do that. Nox winks at them, reminding them, "Have you forgot? A good for nothing." One of the maids bursts into loud tears. Jitri then politely asks if she should inform Sir Rodwell that he'll be leaving the estate, and our silver-haired schemer sighs in agreement. He clenches his hand into a fist, knowing his top priority must be increasing his lifespan. In the missing child's forest, our protagonist, Nox Von Reinhafer, focuses intently as he hunts down gray wolves, siphoning a small amount of their life force with each strike to extend his own borrowed time. He catches his breath after the fight, and is then told he's just gained 2 hours of life from his recent kills. Our life-extending hero wonders if he's wiped out all the wolves in this area after a single hunt, deeming it a successful, if exhausting, expedition. Maid approaches with a drink, asking if he's tired, and he grumbles, annoyed by the time it took. Nox explains that since he didn't activate his Hour of the Genius ability, the hunt felt long, meaning he only truly earned 1 hour after his efforts. His biggest concern, however, is the dwindling number of monsters available, because after hunting for days, he's killed most of them. He looks absolutely spent, sword still in hand, and tries to explain to his maid that a lack of local monsters is a huge problem. The 2 maids are utterly bewildered, wondering if he's gone mad, but our determined Dark Knight simply looks ahead. Nox calmly dismisses the other maid, telling her it's all right. She brightens, smiling as she pledges to handle it, while another maid rushes up, begging to clean his room and not be forgot. One maid runs off excitedly, clutching her basket and paper, and the other smiles softly, holding a folded cloth. It's Jitri who approaches Nox from behind, and our young master pauses, hands gripping a fabric item. He turns to her, asking flat out, "Who do you serve?" Jitri looks completely startled and confused by the direct question. As she looks back at him, troubled and blushing, Nox declares that no matter how beautiful a sword, if he can't use it, he won't hesitate to throw it away. He looks over his shoulder with a cold, serious expression, leaving Jitri looking even more startled and emotional. Nox tells her he knows what she wants to say, his face unyielding as he speaks. The maid flinches, looking toward him uncertainly, and she reaches out as he continues to talk. Jitri looks downcast, as our tactical genius tells her to make use of him too. He walks away, leaving her watching his back, his words hanging in the air. Nox thinks to himself that this is the kind of relationship he has with her after all, as Jitri sits alone and sad. Under the full moon, outside the Elidaine Academy building, a girl sits on her bed, while elsewhere, A demon-horned girl looks annoyed. A blonde girl smiles, reading a book, then gazes out her window at the night sky. Jitri, however, is grappling with the rumors that young Master Nox is a changed person, having heard them countless times since she was with the Lavilia family. She'd initially thought the rumors were fabricated, but recalling how he defeated the twins in one go and earned his academy spot, she now admits it's rare for someone to change so much. Our troubled maid notes that Nox is totally different from her, solidifying his standing within his family. She sighs, contemplating what he said earlier that day, recalling that she's fallen so far despite being a legitimate successor. He had calmly stated that he knew what she wanted to say, then added, "Then make use of me as well." Sitting at her desk, Jitri looks bewildered, wondering what he meant. Meanwhile, a groundless rumor starts spreading within the Reinhafer family, claiming that Jitri was expelled from her family and no longer deserved to be a maid for the Reinhafers. Her feet stand on a cracked floor, symbolizing her fall from grace, as a hand drops an ominous envelope onto a surface. Letter addressed to Jitri de Lavilia begins, "Listen up," and another hand crumples a paper in anger, condemning her as an incompetent family head who sold out her family and will be held accountable. Jitri looks devastated and tearful after reading the letter, which states she's been stripped of all rights as a direct line descendant. He speaks with a resigned expression, realizing she won't be able to stay with the Reinhafer family for long. As Nox duels a female opponent on a magical diagram, Jitri thinks it's to be expected, given the Reinhafer family is one of the top dark families. She stands in a doorway, looking sad, reflecting that even if she's just a maid for a good-for-nothing son, a commoner who lost her family has no right to serve him. A hand turns a doorknob, and Jitri realizes she'll soon be cut off. They'll be serving someone new soon, she thinks, as she cheerfully opens a door, saying hello. In the kitchen, several maids whisper to each other, glancing over at Jitri, who realizes everyone's heard the rumors. She looks down with a somber expression, then looks up startled as someone calls her name, "Jitri." Two maids walk together, one smiling, and Jitri looks anxious, caught off guard. Two hands hold each other, a comforting gesture as one maid says, "Me, Rona." Jitri looks down, flustered, thinking that she, Rona, and young Master Nox are all doing foolish things. Meanwhile, Nox sits by a window, looking out, thinking the end is imminent. He knows it's not just for Jitri. Theo probably received the letter as well. Nox looks ahead with a serious, determined expression, knowing all the crimes framed upon Jitri's father are fabricated. A butterfly flies past his window as he looks on, acknowledging that he's unable to directly help her. Our tactical genius is pensive, focused on the potential butterfly effect of simply helping her survive. A wolf monster growls, lunging through the forest, where our swordsman on borrowed time, Nox Von Reinhafer, stands ready with his blade. He looks sideways, a streak of blood on his cheek, as maids whisper that he looks a little harsh today. Two maids peek from behind bushes, observing him, one looking curious and surprised. The sight of his bloody sword makes the observing maid feel uneasy. Nox stands still, reflecting on his hunt. Our narrator reveals that in the missing child's forest, a hidden boss monster appears randomly once only about 20% of the monsters are left, and Nox wonders if it won't come out today after all. He had planned to kill it to increase his stats, but it seems that won't work out. Suddenly, Nox turns quickly, reacting to something, and dodges an incredibly fast attack, wondering what that was. Our tactical genius smirks, prepared for battle, realizing this must be what a hidden boss is like. They identify it as an elite king wasp, looming large with its wings spread. Nox dodges a swift, sharp strike from the elite king wasp, thinking it's not at a level he can't kill. He has a focused, intense look in his eyes, ready to face it. But then a close-up shows Jitri, the green-haired maid, looking panicked. The elite king wasp descends rapidly toward her, and she's struck, blood spraying as she falls. Nox thinks that even without Jitri's help, that was an attack he could have either dodged or blocked himself. He wonders how many people would be able to run towards a monster that suddenly appeared to save someone. Jitri moves quickly in the air, glowing with energy as Nox thinks he'll make use of this opportunity for the sake of saving her. His jaw is tightly clenched, grits his teeth with determination. As the hour of the genius activates, our hero is transported into a memory of Jitri as a young girl crying, wondering why their dear Jitri is always falling down. In the memory, a maid stands behind two adults in a hallway, contemplating that her wounds are never completely healed, and she looks sad and pensive, realizing this doesn't apply just to her knee wounds, but also her heart, wondering if they were prophesying over her earlier. Nox's stern face appears, asking, "Who do you serve?" Jitri looks back at him with a melancholy smile, repeating his question, "Who?" A man with a wide smile fills the frame, and a shadowy figure looms, declaring, "Jitri, this family is now mine." A person in black holds a dagger, pointing it downward over a dark scene. Silhouette of a man stands before a crest on a textured wall, as Jitri silently asks herself, "Who should I serve?" Back in the present, Nox is panting and bleeding, looking down at the injured Jitri. He calls her name, repeating his earlier question, "Who do you serve?" He then says he will make use of her, and she can make use of him in return. He looks down with a stressed expression, blood staining his shirt, urging her to hang in there a while longer. Nox kneels beside the wounded maid, telling her he'll take her back now, as she weakly insists they need to return to the mansion quickly. Jitri looks up, golden eyes wide, wondering if this is truly the expression of someone just trying to make use of her. Nox has a look of realization, as a tear falls down Jittery's bloody cheek, mixed with anger. Elsewhere, a middle-aged man in a library finds the situation troubling, noting the emotion in Nox's voice. Two men discuss the issue, one looking thoughtful. The distressed maid sits on the ground, lamenting that since the Lavilia family lost their head and is unstable, it seemed like a perfect chance to take them over. She continues, thinking that if the family's situation is so shaky, with Reinhafer's involvement, they should be able to bring them into submission somehow. A man in the library recalls the letter, which states that someone has been stripped of any rights as a direct line descendant. A man with a mustache and monocle looks on, and another with silver hair nods. A young man barges into the library, apologizing as he's scolded for entering without permission. His blonde hair falls across his nervous face. The men in the library discuss seriously, wondering if Nox used the mandrake's purifying potion. One man sighs, while another with lavender eyes questions if he's already grown attached to the maid so quickly. Another maid looks distressed, calling out Jittery's name and lamenting that no one knows what results could come from such personal feelings. Jittery lies in a bed, being comforted by another woman. She looks confused, asking what happened. A maid moves quickly in the room, wondering why she did that back then. A young maid with brown hair cries, clearly upset. A man in a white coat stands next to the bed, as another man urges him to save her. The woman in bed, Jittery with golden eyes, whispers, "Mandrake." A close-up shows her hand gripping the bedsheets tightly, as a maid reaches out to her. A young maid exclaims in surprise, as she talks to a woman whose back is turned. The woman with blonde hair reaches out to open a suitcase in her room. She packs clothes and a notebook, preparing to leave. Looking down at the contents of her suitcase, she thinks to herself that she doesn't deserve to be anywhere. Close-up shows her distressed face as she holds a pendant, which she leaves on a note for Nox, acknowledging he used a potion for her and believing the pendant should more than cover the cost. Our decisive young master rounds on the doctor, demanding to know why he's prioritizing precious medicine over saving a dying maid, and the doctor insists he can't use it without the Patriarch's permission. Nox simply acknowledges the mention of the Patriarch. Enraged by the bureaucratic delay, our silver-haired schemer confronts Rodwell, challenging his authority, forcing the doctor to immediately apologize. He then snaps that he'll report this to his father personally, demanding the doctor act right away, and he complies. As the doctor administers the medicine, confirming Jittery will be all right now that the poison is neutralized, our calculating swordsman walks away, leaving a tearful maidservant behind, but not before ordering her to report Jittery's awakening directly to him. He goes directly to his father, the Patriarch, who notes it's rare for his son to seek him out. The Patriarch then pointedly asks if this is all because of that maid. Nox composes himself, activating his Master O acting skill to prepare for the difficult conversation ahead. Our pragmatic lord reminds his father of a past promise to grant him one wish, and then requests to take Jittery, the maid exiled from her own family, under his personal protection. The Patriarch looks down with a contemplative expression, and Nox reflects on the butterfly effect Jittery's actions will have on the main story. The Patriarch wonders if she's Theo's spy, but then dismisses that kind of problem. Nox realizes that when she tried to save him during the Wasp attack, she showed him the answer she'd always hidden about her true self, not just her sorrowful past. This was Jittery showing it with her actions, not just words. Nox, still kneeling, firmly declares that if taking Jittery is what he wants, he will make it happen. The Patriarch watches his son with a stern, authoritative expression, his gaze unwavering. Even if you're my father, Nox warns. System alert flashes, warning our young master about his declining acting efficacy, as if his true feelings are too strong to hide. The Patriarch remains alone in the grand room, now fully aware of Nox's intentions, while Jittery asks where he thinks he's going. Our silver-haired schemer confronts Jittery in the hallway, silently questioning her behavior. She admits that she was ordered to surveil him, and her hands tremble, clutching the tray she carries. Nox questions if her actions are what a maid should do. Jittery bows her head in shame, her face shadowed, then shouts that she was ordered by the Patriarch to surveil him. Nox simply replies with a hesitant "but." Jittery cries, "I deceived you, but why are you trying to hold me back?" Her face twists in raw emotion. Our pragmatic lord smiles slightly, realizing this raw, struggling side of Jittery, free from her acting, feels far more like a living person. He calmly tells her that people deceive each other a lot to begin with, and he sees a side of her that would choose not to give up. Nox emphasizes his point and then asks, "Who said you could leave?" Jittery gazes upward, tears still in her eyes, seemingly accepting her fate. Nox continues, explaining that he doesn't know what his father thinks, making a gesture to emphasize his point. Nox stands back to back with her, making his stance clear, as Jittery stands solemnly with her case. She looks forward tearfully, listening intently. He then states that she needs to assist him. Nox closes his eyes, his expression gentle. As he walks away, he reminds her that he previously asked her who she serves, then asks if she now knows who it is. Nox glances back with a subtle, knowing smile. He confirms, saying he knows it now, but back at the academy, our young master walks into a room, startling two maids as one reaches out, concerned for Jitri, who is cleaning, warning her not to overwork herself. Another maidservant offers to help him dry the laundry. Our decisive young master scratches his head, looking pensive. He gestures as he speaks to her. Jitri stands with her eyes closed, looking tired, then rests her chin on her hand, listening. He reflects that Jitri no longer forces herself to smile in front of him, admitting, "I'm tired of acting. I'm no good at it anyways." He finds this more comfortable because they don't have to give unnecessary compliments to each other or engage in meaningless small talk. He adds that in a situation where they're driven into a corner, he knows that even with their backs facing each other, he knows, we won't betray each other. Yeah, that's good enough. For his relationship with her, this is key. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure in a suit and hat, bathed in a red glow, smiles unsettlingly, hinting at new dangers ahead. Even after all he's been through, our young master is still hounded by new rumors, with his maid asking if he's truly all right, and she's shocked to learn that they're even worse than the existing ones. The maid is flustered by the sheer audacity of how much worse the new rumors are, making Nox clutch his forehead in frustration, feeling a deep sense of shame at playing the villainous role he's been given. He looks down with a tired, pensive expression. Our pragmatic young lord, tired of beating around the bush, warns his maid he'll fire her if she lies, prompting her to admit that she did hear those rumors, which causes Nox to cover his face in stress. He wipes his brow, visibly exhausted. Contemplating for a moment, Nox accepts his role, stating he is a villain in the end, because he isn't the protagonist of Inner Lunatic. His maid watches him with soft concern, as he declares he will need to prepare as well, sitting at the table and looking down. He looks toward the side with a serious expression, while he even offers a slight smirk at his situation. The maid is surprised and uneasy when Nox brazenly states his intentions, prompting Nox to ask why she's acting so brazen, and she sighs in worry. Our silvery-haired schemer looks stoic and thoughtful, even offering a slight smile as he stands by the window. Nox, hearing a ruckus, asks what's going on and steps to the window with his maid to see his older brother, Green, returning from Elidaine Academy. It's an important event our reset villain almost forgot about. As Green's carriages unload, Nox, with a smirk, tells his maid that it seems he'll need to go on a faraway mission for the time being, leaving his maid worried by his words. Our young master watches the carriages from the balcony, while Green, Nox's older brother and Theo's second son, dines with their father, who congratulates him on graduating from Elidaine. Green, always eager to impress, thanks his father and shares a story from his academy professor. Green recounts how the professor said it was easy to graduate, sitting opposite his father at the dining table. He looks thoughtful as he moves a chess piece, demonstrating his perceived ease. Their father then asks Green if his departure date for Chaders is decided, a question that causes Green to grip his spoon. Green calmly replies yes, and his father nods, listening intently. Green describes Chaders as a barren, monster-swarming wasteland, a neutral territory outside Reinhafer land, bordering Tagilin, and explains that it's crucial for the Arkham Empire to secure, because if this land falls, other areas will suffer as well. The father listens intently, then turns to Nox, asking if he too is going to Chaders. Our terminally ill knight, looking down at his food, confirms he will participate in the subjugation to gain what he needs, knowing this mission is involved in several complicated storylines. Nox states he'll have to participate in the Chaders' subjugation himself, while Green listens to his words. Green, observing Nox with a sharp, calculating expression, sits firmly as he asks if Nox is going with the second daughter of the Stillreners. Nox confirms this is true and explains Green's skill, which figures out why someone is restless, instantly activating his own steel mentality to counteract this precise detection. Green smiles gently, acknowledging the truth of Nox's explanation, confirming it's the skill that made him an expert in living and politics. Our young master's eyes widen with sudden realization. Nox tries to guarantee something to his father, who places a hand on his chest, looking stern. Our young master looks up, surprised, as his father speaks firmly. "This is an order." Our pragmatic young lord stands with a worried expression, a drop of sweat on his face. He and Green stand in the dining room near the ornate table. Close-up reveals his pensive and concerned face. His father's eye looks sharp and scrutinizing. Nox clenches his fist, solemn. He glances to the side, unsettled. Green, with a menacing, malicious smile, provokes Nox. "What?" Green fires back, asking how Nox dares joke around, but Nox instantly grabs him by the collar, threatening him to watch himself. Green, staring back with pure malice, threatens Nox. "It'd be a real pity if you got injured after getting the rare chance to go to Chaders, right?" His words carry a chilling implication of an impending accident as a hand slips from a bottle nearby. Our silvery-haired schemer looks back, sharp and alert, while a maid looks up, surprised and flustered by the escalating tension. It's almost as if the game itself is telling our young master that he's failed to protect himself again. Maid's hand slips, spilling liquid, and our silver-haired schemer, Nox, turns to glare, clearly annoyed. The nervous maid bows her head, apologizing profusely, but Nox, ever stern, adjusts his collar and coldly scolds her for the mistake. He turns to walk away from her in the grand hall, then pauses with a serious look, clenching his fist as he declares she'll see him in 3 days for the Chater's subjugation. The maid is left utterly shocked and confused as Nox opens a door to leave. Our young lord rapidly walks through a hallway, leaving a worried maid in his wake, pondering if she has forgotten his status. He hears whispers about the good-for-nothing joining the subjugation, and then Jitri, his exclusive maid, looks concerned as she speaks to another. He flat-out states that the Chater's region is simply too dangerous, causing Nox to clench his fist in frustration. He apologizes to her, but Jitri stands tall, asserting her duty as his exclusive maid, reaffirming her loyalty to assist him no matter where he goes, a persistence that leaves Nox looking bothered and overwhelmed. She continues her explanation, explaining he's very weak and prone to illness, and frequently forgets his things and needs his clothes washed, delivering a full lecture with her eyes closed. Nox reflects internally that her trivial details actually make sense, realizing her position would be in trouble if he were harmed, so he has no choice but to let her follow him. Jitri smiles gently, having successfully convinced him and our former invalid size, defeated by her logical persistence. Another maid approaches Jitri, surprised by the outcome, while a mystical blue-maned horse gets its hay. Nox, despite his defeat, now wears a satisfied smile. He stands in a room with 2 maids nearby, then turns his head slightly to look off-panel. One maid looks annoyed, a tear visible on her cheek. Nox turns to leave, the maid standing behind him. An older gentleman in a suit and monocle bows with his hand over his heart, as Nox gazes forward with a calm, stoic expression. The gentleman confirms their family will provide supplies for the mission, and reveals that Theo took his side during dinner, hinting something is up. Nox bows respectfully, having heard the gentleman has something for him, who replies that obtaining it depends entirely on him. Close-up reveals a sword resting on a table, making Nox look shocked as he identifies it as the first Patriarch's sword. Our time-limited knight stares intently with his lavender eyes, knowing this item never appeared in Inner Lunatic, even for a veteran player like him who's cleared the game 27 times. He doesn't understand the current situation, as a hand clenches into a fist in the background, and the ancient sword rests on the wooden table, radiating craftsmanship. Nox reacts with visible surprise, but he reaches out to grip the hilt, knowing this sword accompanied the first Patriarch his whole life. The elderly gentleman confirms it's a sword that was with him his entire life, and Nox asks him flat out what test he must go through to claim it. His face is a close-up of determination, as his hand touches the hilt. The moment he lifts the sword, an immediate eruption of intense dark purple energy explodes around him like a volcano, cracking the ground open, leaving him utterly shocked as his eyes widen from the power. The purple mana swirls across the sword's surface, and Nox grips the hilt firmly as it pulses with energy. He's stunned to see the blade's color has changed, while the elderly gentleman looks on. Nox nods, trying to control the massive surge of energy, and the gentleman simply says, "And," as the dark energy envelops the room. Nox looks on in shock as dark purple energy surges around him, feeling his body stagger like he's just taken a punch to the gut, as the energy consumes his mana. System warning appears. His mana is being absorbed at a rapid rate, which will get dangerous if it continues this quickly. The elderly gentleman stands near our time-limited knight, informing him he just needs to last 10 minutes while holding that sword, a challenge that makes Nox grip the hilt until his knuckles turn white. The gentleman continues his explanation, keeping his hands clasped behind his back, and finally reveals the sword's name, Stormbringer. Nox reacts with a strained expression as Stormbringer absorbs his mana, a special effect where it converts his mana into its own stats, until his mana is completely exhausted. Then a horrifying system message appears. It's forcefully converting our young lord's life force into mana, and Nox yells in distress as his life is depleted quickly. He desperately tries to give up and release the sword, but his hand is locked onto the hilt, glowing with dark red energy. Nox can't let go of the sword while the older man, Thea, watches intently. A flashback explains Stormbringer is a magic sword that gives tremendous power, but at the cost of harming its wielder. It's implied only the first Patriarch truly wielded it, as Theo himself can only hold it for barely an hour. He specifically ordered Nox, who hasn't fully learned to control mana, to hold this dangerous sword, connecting it to the recent incident of him saving Jitri. Other students like Talia reflect on all the huge incidents Nox has been involved in, and Hartz and Allen discuss their suspicions, believing it's no coincidence. Nox collapses to the floor, his aura flaring dark and intense, his hand gripping the hilt, trembling with exertion. Theo, looking impressed, thinks Nox might be as talented as a sword emperor, believing if he can last 10 minutes, Nox will become the greatest patriarch in their family's history. Nox strikes the ground with his sword, dark energy erupting, and Theo realizes he'll surpass and eventually kill him. Nox grimaces with intense exertion, his face strained as he continues to hold the power. Theo, standing and watching with a focused expression, acknowledges that Nox was indeed hiding his strength. Nox kneels, gasping for breath, as Theo declares the sword is now his. Still exhausted, Nox looks distressed and sweaty, demanding his life force back before Theo leaves. The group rides horses on a forest path under sun-drenched trees, with bags hanging at the side. Jitri looks back over her shoulder, while our time-limited knight looks ahead, tired and unamused. Jitri, riding behind him, wonders why he looks so bad, despite Theo giving him another item besides Stormbringer. Nox, with an angry, vein-popping expression, admits he's not thankful at all after seeing his life force taken away, and grumbles that carrying so many things was a little too much to tag along. He looks to the side, reacting to something nearby, as Jitri is tucked closely behind him. A group of people argue about which path to take, and Nox looks ahead unamused. A man in brown clothing speaks to him, looking anxious, sweaty and anxious, holding his hand to his chest. Our silver-haired strategist ignores the man pointing at him, while Jitri looks up with concern. Nox glances down at her with a neutral expression, then pulls his horse's reins. Jitri looks back, reacting to the horse's movement, as Nox looks up into the forest with others gathered around him. He holds up his hand to silence everyone while sitting on his horse, staring ahead with a calm, focused expression. He shouts angrily at someone, a close-up of his intense face, and sits firmly on his horse, with Jitri partially visible behind him. Someone looks down with a suspicious and annoyed expression, wondering how Nox, who's only lived in the mansion, knows the way, and he smiles slightly, keeping his hand on his chest. Nox and Jitri discuss the vassals' suspicious behavior, knowing that while arriving late could be a problem, taking a little detour might not be a bad idea to bring down their confidence. Our veteran player gazes forward with a calm expression and simply states, "This way." Tents are being set up by camp members under the dense forest trees as two subordinates exchange worried glances. Nox yells at his companions in intense frustration, confronting the two subordinates near the tents, who are shocked he found the way. Someone hides in the shadows of the tent, observing his rivals, while Nox reflects that he already knows the way, an easy task for a veteran player. He visualizes the strategic hubs map, having visited the Chaders area hundreds of times. Jitri asks our young master how he found the way so quickly, and Nox points to the ground, asking if they noticed the signs. He identifies claw marks and feathers on the forest floor as owlbear footprints, describing the creature with a bear's body and an owl's head that lives in the south. Jitri looks shocked at Nox's sudden observation skills, as he stands before two men with a dark, serious expression. Nox looks down with a grim, annoyed expression, then adjusts his collar. He stands with two others in the forest, and Schultz, the butler, stands looking towards someone. Nox looks up with a sharp, focused expression, and Schultz smiles while adjusting his clothing. A close-up shows a hand clutching a bundle of fabric. Nox smirks with a devious look on his face, as someone remarks that it will be a long night for him. An aerial view shows the campsite with tents at night, and Nox stands guard by a tent pole, looking exhausted. He sits on the ground in the dark, holding his sword, then approaches a girl, startling her. Nox leans into the tent, speaking to someone inside, telling her he wants her to wait there, his hand firmly gripping his sword hilt. While on guard duty in the dark forest, our terminally ill knight Nox suddenly faces a group of shadowy figures, which coalesce into a massive, blue-skinned ogre armed with a spiked club, and Nox quickly counts 4 ogres before looking down to realize the cause. He spots a pile of dark material on the ground, recognizing it as soil mixed with female ogre pheromones, a trick used during their mating season to lure males, which means this isn't random. Nox realizes that while Green intended to use these ogres to intimidate him, he now draws Stormbringer, his hand wrapped in dark magic, wondering if his life force will be consumed again. He strikes an ogre, sending it recoiling in pain as red motion lines flash, and the artifact Stormbringer responds perfectly to his mana and will. Nox swings his sword, surrounded by a dark purple aura, creating a powerful blast of energy that impacts the ground, and he jumps midair during the battle, silhouetted against a bright background, unleashing a dark purple, mana-based attack on 2 more ogres. Our short-lived hero descends with his sword raised, still surrounded by the dark purple aura, landing a powerful blow that creates a swirling energy effect, then delivers a slashing strike against another opponent. He stands before an ogre, gripping his sword tightly, his face intense and focused mid-battle, as he strikes ogres with his sword, leaving trails of dark purple energy, and moves quickly with his blade, surrounded by swirling dark magic. An ogre roars in pain, struck by the relentless dark attack. As Nox inspects his sword with dark mana still flowing around his hand, he muses, "This sword is pretty good." He smiles slightly, looking ahead, relieved that his worry was unfounded about it eating up his mana recklessly like it did in front of Theo. Dark energy coats his hand and sword handle, and he looks forward with a calm, focused expression, feeling the sword moving easily in the direction he wants. Our calculating strategist stands among fallen ogres, looking at the last one standing, and notes there is only one left. The nervous ogre trembles looking at Nox, then turns to flee, but Nox thinks he cannot allow that. With blood splattered on his face, Nox intensely shouts, "Carl!" His black horse Carl with glowing white eyes turns its head toward him as bright blue magical flames erupt around its head. Nox mounts the black horse, drawing his dark sword, and they charge forward, Carl carrying our hero, who brandishes his dark, aura-coated sword high. Nox's face is a close-up, focused and determined as he fights, swinging his sword to create a large dark purple energy slash while riding the horse, connecting with a powerful impact. Nox catches his breath while riding Carl as a system window appears, confirming he has gained 1 day and 9 hours after defeating the ogres. Meanwhile, Talia peeks out from inside her tent, calling, "Young Master Nox." Her eyes are wide and worried, looking concerned and stressed. Nox sits on his horse, looking down at our concerned companion, scolding her. "I told you to wait in the tent." He remains calm and stoic in profile, while Talia is startled, clearly flustered as Nox reaches out to her. Nox gestures towards the forest while explaining to Talia that the enemy made use of the ogre's behavior to attack them. Talia looks startled with wide eyes and a sweat drop, still reacting to Nox's presence. Nox then speaks to his horse, Carl, telling him he can go to sleep now. 2 figures with silvery hair, Nox and an unknown man, stand closely together. Nox kneels on the ground near his horse, determined to counter the opposition's plan, thinking he ought to let him know that that won't work on him, as compared to the eldest son, Garen. He's not as strong, so he had no choice but to use a cowardly plan like this to get information. A resourceful leader's face shows a calm, slightly mysterious smile. Nox stands in the woods, holding a vial, looking composed. Meanwhile, in another part of the dark forest, a voice warns that the ogres would seek revenge for their fallen fellows. Inside a tent, a magical orb glows intensely, making a young man wonder what is happening. He sits in the dark, watching the glowing orb in confusion, wondering why it is reacting now. Close-up of the glowing blue magical orb shows that it is a tool to detect monster mana, leading him to question if it is faulty. The young man contemplates the situation, as an explosion effect happens nearby, thinking there's no way a monster strong enough to activate the mana would appear, since they're still at the forest entrance. He stands near the glowing orb as heavy thumping sounds begin. His face shows anxiety and worry as a soldier shouts, "Ah, emergency!" reacting with fear to an approaching threat. Nox looks at an ally in confusion, asking what is happening. Knights combat an ogre in the forest as it lets out a loud shout. More knights continue to battle the blue ogre in the dark woods. Nox expresses intense frustration and stress, trembling, saying, "Damn it." A bright magical explosion lights up the sky over the landscape, confirming that this isn't the place where ogres should be appearing. Nox confronts a soldier near the tents in the forest camp, shouting with a look of exhaustion and rage, while the soldier nervously listens to Nox's command. But then Nox yawns, stretching, seemingly unbothered by the current tension. Nox talks to a blonde female character, who looks disappointed and sighs. He sits on a crate, asking her to repeat herself. Nox makes a dismissive remark with a relaxed expression, shrugging. Our time-limited swordsman, then, suggests that tens of ogres might appear here like they did at his brother's tent area. The blonde female character sighs, looking stressed as Nox talks to her. Nox commands his group to pack up the camp, and the soldiers respond obediently. He calmly eats with a spoon, looking off-screen. Close-up of a tent reveals a dark blood stain, and Nox remarks that the blood-stained tent needs to be thrown away. Nox talks to the blonde female character while eating, asking if they should help the others. His face is a close-up as he speaks. The blonde female character looks confused, asking him to clarify. An illustrative diagram shows ogre icons pointing toward tents, making Nox think that's what he was after from the start. But if he tells her that, she'll probably nag at him, right? Close-up of Nox looking down while eating confirms his true motivation. He needs more ogres to appear to extend his life. The female character asks if Nox is done eating, as he stands up from the crate, declaring they will need the ogres soon. The ground shakes in the forest, and Nox stands with his hand on his hip, looking confident as he gives the order to pack up and depart. Then Rick, with his unsettling mask, tips his hat, his actions implying a challenge. Meanwhile, a shadowy hooded figure in tattered armor watches from extreme shadow, appearing satisfied. The second day of their journey, our brilliant strategist Nox rides, musing that Chaders is still quite far away, so he was a little worried, but now everything is great. He rides on his horse, accompanied by Talia and other Academy students, with an Academy peer following close behind. The peer speaks to Nox, who glances over his shoulder with a confident smile. Nox and the Academy peer continue talking while riding, with the peer looking at Nox suspiciously and asking if there would be any problems. Other Academy students watch, discussing how Nox has unknowingly taken over command of the soldiers, wondering when Nox learned so much about ogres. An Academy student questions our life-extending hero while they ride, and 2 students react in shock or surprise to the conversation. Nox smiles slightly while looking forward, knowing exactly what's coming. He thinks about this very place. Talia looks startled and shocked as Nox leads the group on his horse, shouting excitedly. Our game master smiles broadly, anticipating a battle, exclaiming that the moment has arrived. A massive worm-like monster bursts out of the ground, like an erupting geyser, and a student cries, seeing the worm. Nox deflects an incoming attack while still on horseback, while another student describes it as a monster that looks like both a snake and an earthworm. Nox explains the nature of the monster to the group, noting that thanks to its nature, it can't use any magic, but it's still famous for being very strong. He adds that even if tens of ogres came swarming at them, this worm would still be the more difficult monster to defeat. The worm-like monster wriggles violently, causing the ground to shake, but Nox confesses, "But I was looking for it." Our hero smiles, recalling how he lured the monster out, thinking that the soldiers would probably be in shock if they knew he was trying to get the worm to come out by tapping on the ground. But what can they do? Nox speaks with a calm, focused expression. Academy students look confused and ask if they should hide. Nox tells the students there won't be any problems if they make it out of this forest quickly, remembering the motto, "Let our enemies defeat our enemies." He had no intentions of shaking off the ogres from the start. A student grabs Nox's jacket sleeve in fear, while Talia watches with a distressed and worried expression, her eyes wide. Nox stands calmly while Talia clutches his jacket in the forest, assuring her not to worry. He looks off-panel with a calm and focused expression, as a giant worm-like monster lunges at an ogre in the forest, slamming its massive body down with intense force. A fierce ogre screams as it faces the monster, and Nox explains that they are the worm's main food source, but they're always seeking revenge, basically archenemies of each other. Nox and Talia observe the chaotic forest scene with a student in the background, as the worm-like monster opens its massive maw to strike. It strikes the forest ground, crushing an ogre beneath its massive body, and multiple ogres clash with the giant worm in a violent frenzy. Talia watches the battle, her expression filling with realization, and an academy student stares in shock as the monsters attack each other. Another student looks frustrated and suspicious, wondering how Nox knew such information. Nox crouches behind a tree, picking up stones while Talia watches, asking if they just need to wait now. The giant monster continues its brutal attack against the group of ogres. Nox moves swiftly through the forest shadows, a stone thrown by Nox impacts against an ogre's skin with force. Talia looks concerned, questioning Nox's decision to throw stones, worried the ogres might attack them instead. Nox's face is serious and focused, as a system message confirms his strength stat has increased by 0.1, then again by 0.1, and his life has been extended by 8 hours for defeating the ogres, making him quietly offer an apology to Jitri. A defeated ogre lies motionless on the forest floor, another system message confirming his life extension and strength increase, as he thinks it's good that he made use of the ogres, but they lost in the end. Nox looks distressed while observing the battle from his hiding spot. Then, nervous and determined to escape safely, he realizes the worm is too hard for them to kill, wondering what they should do. He then orders everyone to prepare to attack. A character stands in the forest, their legs visible. Nox looks over his shoulder with a sharp expression. A male student shouts in alarm, holding a bow, with another student behind him. The giant worm monster lunges at the student holding the bow, shrieking menacingly as it rears up for an attack. Nox prepares to draw his sword with a confident smile, declaring, "It's my turn now then." A golden aura of clockwork gears glows intensely as arrows fly through the air in a forest clearing. Academy students in dark uniforms aim and fire bows, and Nox leaps forward, like a human arrow, leaving a trail of golden light. His foot impacts the ground with force, and he strikes with his sword, still surrounded by golden clockwork gears. The monstrous worm-like creature coils, struck by our time-limited swordsman's golden blade. Nox delivers a powerful golden slash against the monster, performing an aerial strike as students support from below. He lands after his attack, looking down at the defeated monster, satisfied with the 10 days of life extension, now with 122 days remaining. Dead ogre lies on the grass, as a student comments that it's a mid-size monster, and if it weren't for the ogres, they wouldn't have been able to kill it so easily. Nox examines a magical document, noting that his curse of the weak and blessing of growth traits are both gone, as the system confirms his stamina is now 5. Nox clenches his fist in determination, pleased to have finally reached 5 stamina. He addresses the group of academy students, commending their great job. He looks on with a calm, stoic expression, hearing the students cheer enthusiastically. The defeated worm-like monster lies dead on the ground, creating a crater. Nox glances toward a group of academy students in the forest, when suddenly, another worm-like monster bursts out of the ground, causing a student to shout in alarm. Nox reacts with surprise to the sudden appearance, asking if there's another one. Our swordsman on borrowed time narrows his eyes and swings his sword in a wide arc against the monster. Close impact shot shows his sword cutting through the monster's flesh. Nox lunges forward, blade glowing as he strikes. He stands ready with his sword, looking confused at the battlefield and wondering what's happening. Meanwhile, Rick looks towards the battle with a sinister expression, wearing his monocle, thinking about what he is doing here. And a cloaked figure with a hood stands in shadows, holding a bladed weapon, satisfied with the outcome. Our strategic student encounters a powerful mercenary standing over a defeated monster. And this guy isn't just any mercenary. He's the sword genius Paracelsus, who will become one of the 3 sword emperors later, and a student of Theo's. But Nox is immediately wary because this guy absolutely hates nobles, and even asks our young master for thanks after saving him. One of Nox's companions is shocked by the reveal, pointing right at the legendary mercenary, who just smiles casually as if he knows exactly what he's doing. For our calculating hero, this is a huge problem. Nox understands why Paracelsus hates nobles, given his past, but the real issue is that Paracelsus shouldn't even be here, as Nox has played this game countless times and knows his first encounter with Paracelsus is supposed to be at Elidaine Academy. Paracelsus then very politely asks if he can check Nox's identity, which our young master agrees to, and can only wonder what the heck is going on. As they travel by horseback, Paracelsus asks our monocled mercenary if he is indeed a mercenary, and Nox just sighs, adjusting his monocle, clearly annoyed by the question. They pass a monster hunt, which sparks a thought in our strategic student, who realizes that Paracelsus did actually travel everywhere within the Empire before school, furthering his training, which explains his early appearance. The sword genius wears a faint smile, while our terminally ill knight looks slightly amused through his monocle, his eyes shifting, glancing back at his companion, as Paracelsus tells his own companion to give it a rest. For Nox, seeing Paracelsus's skills in taking down a worm in one strike makes him realize he absolutely must recruit him. Paracelsus, meanwhile, looks down with a cunning, shadowed expression, thinking of how he'll take the soldiers' attention away from Nox. Soon, the group arrives at the gate of Chater's village, which feels even more deserted than Nox remembers from the game. It's a desolate scene, with rats scuttling in corners, which our loose-skinned lord eyes with disgust, and a young girl stands alone, looking apprehensive as Nox approaches on horseback. Paracelsus gives a dismissive tusk, annoyed by the whole state of things, when a bearded man named Tegan greets them, acknowledging Paracelsus as one of the Sword Emperors, and Nox Von Reinhafer, the younger brother of Theo von Reinhafer, son of the proud Reinhafer family. Tegan openly expresses his disappointment, saying he had great expectations for the family's subjugation mission in Chater's, but they're still just sheltered young masters of a noble family, and Paracelsus echoes his sentiment, calling it, "What a disappointment." Tegan goes on to explain how the city isn't functioning, with the Night Order embezzling funds, and the people unable to stand against monster waves, huddled in corners, happy if they just get some food. A grim overview of the wooden village buildings. Since it's getting late, Tegan offers to tell them the mission details tomorrow, inviting them in. As our young master walks into a building, Paracelsus calls out, wanting to discuss the offer Nox just proposed to him, and Nox looks back with a faint, observant smile, while Paracelsus, monocle glinting, smiles back, telling Nox that if one has the skills, they'll be able to make it in the world. Inside, our strategic student tells Jitri to rest up, as they'll be moving again tomorrow, then stands by the door, looking out at the desolate village and sighing, his hand resting on the windowsill as he watches children huddled by a campfire. He sees a young girl startled by something, looking up with wide eyes, so our calculating hero approaches, holding a bag, asking if they wanted some food. He opens the bag, revealing bread, and hands a piece to one of the children, telling them to eat up, and the young girl clutches it, asking if they really can have it. Nox looks down, melancholic, acknowledging that he can't save everyone, but for any of Yoo Chan's kindness and generosity to make a difference, they first need to survive in Chater's. From the shadows, Talia von Stilliner watches him, realizing he was just acting cold, and a mysterious cloaked figure in dark armor then speaks, telling someone to trust them and go for it, because the worst thing that could happen is death. The southern Chater's region, swarming with monsters in winter, is the next focus for our terminally ill knight, who walks through the woods with his men, sighing that once the monster wave starts, the villagers will probably be wiped out in less than an hour. Despite the grim outlook, Nox looks determined, knowing Chater's has high value and will become an expensive piece of land, even though most people don't realize that having more rampant monsters will actually help them in the future. He explains to his bearded companion that one of the most important factors of the subjugation will be whether they can drive away the Griffin, the king of the wilderness, a creature usually designed to be stopped, not defeated. But our strategic student intends to defeat it, pushing toward the endless horizon of the wilderness, like a force of nature. Nox then asks his men if they know why the Griffins are here now, since they usually stay near Tahalin, and as two men look serious, Nox thinks to himself that he has a good guess on who the traitor will be, and the subquest has started, so it's time to cut out the most rotten part of the village first, as a hand holds and then crumbles a paper document, foreshadowing conflict. Meanwhile, a man sits at a table, seething with anger, realizing he'd fallen for Nox Von Reinhafer's scheme and lost favor with Green, despite all his efforts. His eyes fall on a woman walking down the stairs, whom he identifies as Jitri, a commoner, and soon a hand stops her, and she lets out a startled cry as a male student corners her against a wall. She asks if he has any business with her, but he dismisses her concern, saying he just wants a little chat, as he grips her hand, holding her wrist, telling her they're both knights serving a master, placing his hand on her shoulder. Jitri looks shocked and distressed, grimacing in conflict, thinking she can't reject his advances, because if she does, young Master Nox will fall out of favor with young Master Green, drawing unnecessary attention to his family. The male student looks menacingly, promising to make her pay, but then a magical slash strikes near him, making Jitri gasp in shock, as Nox Von Reinhafer's eyes glow with purple mana, ready to deliver consequences. The bloodied man clutches his side, yelling in shock and pain as Jitri recoils, and our terminally ill knight looks on with glowing purple eyes and a cold expression, standing over the fallen man. The wounded man sputters that this is completely wrong, but Nox, holding his sword firmly, tells him, "No, I'm not the one who doesn't know my place because my family is behind me. You are." Then, with a powerful aura-infused sword strike downward, he silences his opponent, leaving Jitri staring in horror, asking, "What did you just do?" Soon, a group of men, including Nox's silver-haired brother, confront him, aggressively pointing his finger and claiming Nox got the sequence of events wrong. Nox listens with a calm, unimpressed expression, even as his brother grabs him by the collar, furious. But our calculating hero calmly states that he simply heard him trying to sexually harass his maid, and as her master, he couldn't stand by. Then Nox's eyes go wide and focused as he uses mana, a dark purple aura surrounding him, shocking everyone present, especially his brother, who mutters, "What? This is Nox's power. That good-for-nothing youngest brother of our family is actually this talented." His brother complains that Nox should have reported it first, but Nox asks if he wanted their father to decide after they returned to their estate, making the silver-haired man nervous, sweating as he realizes Nox, "You punk," wants something from him. Nox gives a faint, calculating smile, then asks Jitri if she's hurt anywhere as she responds deferentially, and they walk away together, leaving his brother wondering, since when did he become so strong? His brother watches them go, thinking he's seen that sword before and realizing he mustn't underestimate Nox during this subjugation mission. After the dust settles from his display of power, our reborn genius stands with Talia near a well, contemplating the political storm he just kicked up, because the soldiers are already split, and now they'll have to choose between him or Green. Talia, however, is visibly shaken by the whole ordeal, clutching her hands so tight her knuckles are white. Our cool-headed commander looks down at her distress, as she asks him with deep concern if he will be all right. Her eyes are wide and watery, then she cries out, asking why he did that. The tears start to fall down her face, but Nox remains perfectly composed, speaking to her calmly in the secluded storage area. He explains that he is the good-for-nothing of the Reinhafer family, but stands tall and dignified despite the self-deprecation, giving her a firm command, "Don't ever bow your head." She wipes her eyes, promising to bear it in mind. Meanwhile, Rick is somewhere else, slamming his tankard down on a table, annoyed that Nox is completely different from the troublesome task his father assigned him, wondering how a good-for-nothing could possibly rise above him. He stares at Nox's sword, pondering if its resemblance to his father's is just a coincidence, and worries about who he can trust to monitor our protagonist, now that Schultz is gone. Then a man in a hooded cloak appears, addressing Rick as young Master Green. Green is also looking quite serious, as Rick admits that young Master Nox is certainly different from the rumors they've heard. Rick grumbles about how much money he paid for a sloppy job, wondering how Nox, who only ever studied books, knows this place better than his own people. He decides to make use of Green's night order a little longer since the monster wave hasn't even started yet, and instructs him to clear out all the bandits and monsters in the vicinity. He adds that if Nox acts up or strangely, Green must report it to him immediately. Green listens respectfully to the instructions. Back with our strategic student, he's examining items with his female companion, asking if she's taken a look at the village walls. He tells her they should go, and she asks where they are going. Our terminally ill knight looks over his shoulder, explaining that he's thinking of recruiting a new person for their team, which is the opposite direction from their inn. He knows that even in a small village like this, there will be a genius character. He calls her his potion shuttle, a genius potion maker he recruits every time he comes to Chaders. They walk through a dark area, and his companion looks quite worried. Nox simply affirms, explaining that this is the hidden route to clear Chaders, and gestures towards an underground entrance. Because in the future, Alina will be working for another, and if one doesn't clear Chaders with this hidden route, they can never get her. His companion looks surprised, asking if such a person really exists here. They discover their target in a dark corridor, seemingly taking a swig from a bottle. She leans back, looking quite intoxicated, wondering out loud how she ended up like this. She only notices Nox and his companion, confused. Our protagonist smiles confidently, announcing, "My potion maker." The intoxicated woman reacts in shock to their sudden appearance, as Nox looks on calmly while his companion stares in surprise. She then lets out a hiccup, realizing she might be drunk. The room itself is filled with rows of glowing glass containers, a testament to her skill. Sitting on the floor, Alina looks regretful, apologizing profusely because she didn't realize they were from a reputable family. Nox, sitting at a table with his companion, tells her that he has something to talk about and wants her to stay focused. She replies that she understands. He knows that at this point in the story, she's Alina, a genius character with the highest potential for development, and he absolutely has to recruit her. He sighs, putting a hand to his forehead, admitting that it's to be expected that genius characters he can recruit will have flaws, because honestly there are none, much less a precious genius potion maker. Our strategic student concludes that she is problematic, but they have no choice, while Alina can only manage a hesitant sound. His companion admits that she knows she's out of line for saying this, but Nox already knows that too, reiterating that they're out of options right now. Then he tells her to put that aside, and facing Alina, states that he will get straight to the point. He gestures with his hand, making his offer. Lena looks surprised, staring at him, a close-up showing Nox's determined eye. Lena nervously clenches her hands in her lap, and looking downcast, tells him that she cannot accept his offer because she has something she must do here. Her eyes widen in alarm as she frantically asks, "How do you know that?" Elena grips the edge of the table, clearly agitated, but then Nox reveals his counteroffer. "But if you accept my offer," right as a mysterious masked man in a suit appears from a red mist like a phantom asking, "What do you say?" Dark stone corridor with a barred gate opens onto a dimly lit room, where Green, the purple-haired woman, sits sadly at a wooden table, and our strategic student, Nox Von Reinhafer, stands speaking in the shadows, his words causing her to look down with a sorrowful expression, tears welling in her eyes as she recalls a memory of an orange-haired woman shouting aggressively in a crowded town square, demanding to know why taxes were raised again this month, why the imperial family's funds hadn't been used to repair the walls while people were dying, with a stern man and helmeted soldiers looking on, unable or unwilling to intervene. A memory so vivid it makes Green regret her inaction, wishing she had reacted more aggressively back then, because now she laments her inability to rescue her friend by herself, and reflects on how she doesn't think she'll be able to forget this trauma for a long time. Meanwhile, Nox stands before a woman in a green hooded cloak, continuing his journey after that heavy conversation, until he reaches a bustling inn full of people drinking and talking at wooden tables, where a group of shady figures are drinking red liquid from wooden mugs, one man even handing a green bottle to another, as they discuss their recent schemes, with one dismissing their target as an idiot who fell for their tricks, and the other laughing about how he believed them without any suspicion, bragging that even though they got it by coincidence, it was worth ransacking the Ron Knight Order's living place, having even managed to snag a gold emblem with a sword symbol, which they believe will open doors to even bigger jobs, as one gestures to the emblem pinned to his chest, envisioning himself posing as the captain of the Ron Knight Order, and another notes the interesting coincidence of their target having the same name, since they're talking about a member of the Reinhafer family, asking if they agree. While his companion looks nervous, sweating slightly as he questions if everything will truly be all right, because they're talking about the most influential among the three dark families, and the thought of dealing with them clearly frightens him. But his older accomplice glares and shouts, calling him a fucking coward, dismissing his concerns with a wave of the hand, before standing up from the table, gesturing confidently as he explains his plan, looking into the distance with a smug expression, believing that the Reinhafer family won't be able to do anything to them, because they are safe in an enemy nation surrounded by sand, though one of them still looks concerned, sweating slightly as he wonders if their mark really didn't catch on to their lie, while another touches his chin thoughtfully, noting that the target has a persistent personality, but the leader just smiles, laughing that even his captain is getting worried, because their mark is just a kid, isn't he? He then urges them to drink up and forget their worries, when suddenly the candle wick flickers ominously in the dark, and our silver-haired swordsman Nox stands confronting two hooded men, having arrived to spoil their fun, as one hooded man reacts in shock and alarm, shouting, "What just happened?" asking who turned off the lights, while another looks on, bloodied and confused, already having felt Nox's presence, with a close-up revealing bloody fingers, showing the swiftness of our cunning knight's attack, causing another thug to grimace as he stands up quickly, knocking furniture over in a desperate attempt to fight back, as Nox's boot steps on something on the ground, likely another fallen thug, and a man looks down at someone lying on the ground, realizing the gravity of the situation. Shadowed face alert as he identifies the unexpected threat, enemies, making another character gasp in terror, as Nox stands over a man holding his sword while the thug demands to know who he is, and why he speaks so rudely, a close-up of Nox's face revealing his glowing purple eyes, unwavering, and the thug recognizes him, stammering, "Why you are?" Nox retorts that they've been hiding like rats in this hole, confronting the entire group, his presence radiating an undeniable aura of authority. And our young master then explains that they're mistaken about something, because he already knows of their various crimes, including the misappropriation of funds together with Tegan, causing the thug's face to contort in anger as he grits his teeth, cursing under his breath, and the leader smiles, trying to negotiate or threaten Nox, asking what he wants, warning him to think carefully about getting rid of Green. But our strategic student simply stares intensely as the man looks away, barely finishing his sentence, because Nox, surrounded by hooded attackers, has no intention for them to take any unnecessary risks. And as he clashes with the hooded men, his sword glowing with a dark purple aura, he thinks of how they spout all that nonsense while letting out their murderous intentions, then swings his sword, leaving a trail of dark purple mana. As an attacker shouts orders to attack, questioning if they think anyone would be naive enough to believe his lies, while more attackers rush toward our silver-haired swordsman, but he deflects their attack with effortless grace, mid-swing with his dark aura sword, clashing against an enemy weapon in an action shot of a sword clash with dark purple energy. Nox seen from behind, handling multiple opponents at once, leaving an injured attacker to glare in frustration, shouting, "Damn it, that fucker." Has he been hiding his skills this whole time? As another thug grips his sword, realizing the danger and thinking he needs to put an end to this immediately, so the captain assumes a powerful stance, a bright blue energy aura surrounding him, a close-up showing him focusing that blue aura energy, declaring, "Remember this." As Nox stands over a fallen enemy, the main attacker initiates a bright blue sword slash, certain that our terminally ill knight is done for this time, darn brat. ending a bright blue arc of energy cutting across the scene, which his subordinate identifies as the captain's southern sword technique. Yet Nox stands calm in the tavern, as the large blue energy blast passes near him, almost as if he's observing it, gripping the hilt of his sword, which is now surrounded by dark purple energy, thinking to himself that the captain is more simple-minded than he had expected. Then Nox engages in a sword clash with the attacker, but this time also emits bright blue energy, having somehow learned the technique just by seeing it. A close-up of the defeated attacker's shocked face confirming that our genius swordsman has destroyed his enemy's attack, leaving the attacker to look up from the ground in fear, as Nox stands over the fallen thug, who is now bleeding on the ground, with a wide shot showing our cunning knight walking toward the entirely defeated attacker in the tavern, standing calm and collected while looking down at his opponent, now surrounded by a blue aura, as a system message confirms that he has already got and succeeded in learning the southern sword technique. Our genius swordsman, Nox, stands bathed in a cool blue energy, his face bloodied but triumphant, as he feels a surge of satisfaction, knowing he has successfully learned the southern sword technique. The thugs he just dispatched look on, stunned, as Nox shifts into a combat stance, ready for anything, his intense gaze betraying a deeper internal victory. He suddenly finds himself in a stark white void, barefoot and reflective, his eyes deep in thought, as he walks toward his own reflection, touching a glass-like barrier that separates him from his mirrored self. Nox wonders aloud if becoming a genius means proving you can reach a higher level than most people. He presses against the surface, asking himself that very question repeatedly from the moment he risked his life. And with a decisive push, the void around him shatters into countless pieces, leaving him smiling, calm, and resolved, having broken through his own mental limits. Back in the dark environment, Nox swings his sword, creating a bright blue arc of energy, internally noting that while this technique might not be much compared to what he'll learn in the future, it's certainly enough for his current enemies. His strike impacts multiple opponents, sending them flying with screams and blood. The wounded enemy captain drops to his knees, crying out in pain and shock, his wide, disbelieving eyes recalling the technique and wondering, the sword technique that took me more than 10 years of my life to master. How does a kid like him know it? A sword point presses ominously against the captain's leg, as Nox stands over him, his blade glowing with an ominous dark blue aura. The captain's eyes fill with intense terror, and he scrambles backward on the ground, frantically threatening that Tegan won't let Nox get away with it if he kills him. Our decisive young master towers over the captain with cold intensity, dismissing his pleas and explaining that there won't be any witnesses to his killing. The captain, Ron, is left sweating and utterly petrified, his panicked eyes staring up as Nox explains he's simply assassinating them. Nox holds a finger to his lips, shushing the captain, his glowing eyes conveying a chilling message. If no one lives to tell the tale, then this will simply look like an assassination. He then rests his bloodied sword on his shoulder, a cold, predatory smile playing on his lips. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a human hand is shackled to a chain, showing a deep wound or bruise on the wrist. As May, a young woman with braided hair, breathes heavily, her eyes closed in exhaustion and pain. A man in dark clothes cruelly holds May by her hair, forcing her head up, threatening to sell her off to other nobles. His face shows a cold, manipulative expression, but May, chained to the wall and injured, looks defiantly back, refusing to listen to the likes of him. The captor grabs her chin, forcing her to look at him as he mocks her helplessness, then spits on the ground with a mocking grin, telling her to struggle. Suddenly, he pauses, looking to the side as if distracted by something unexpected and suspicious. He asks an unseen person what they think they're doing. He's then struck or pushed by an unseen force, stumbling backward. May, exhausted and bruised, listens to his continued threat of being sold to a black mage. A woman in a dark dress stands in a room, speaking to a younger, unseen May, telling her that aptitude matters, and that she got the mixture wrong again despite her best efforts. Young May looks up, holding a potion bottle with a troubled expression, unable to understand how she could have failed. He looks down sadly as she listens to her unseen teacher. The woman in the dark dress then smiles brightly, clasping her hands and calling out, "Elina!" Elina, a young elf girl, looks down shyly while holding a potion bottle, as the teacher gushes that she has nothing left to teach her. The woman in the dark dress tells Elina that if only she weren't a war orphan, but from a noble family, even a low-ranked one, she would have so much potential, hoping she can at least get out of the orphanage. The older, orange-haired May looks ahead seriously, remembering how Elina, the elf girl, constantly shone with a sparkle around her. And despite that bright smile of hers, May remembers Elina holding her hands, wanting to play together. But that bright smile had caused May to be helplessly envious of her. Now bruised and sad, May recalls her decision to sacrifice herself instead of Elina. Back in the present, May looks at the approaching man, reflecting that struggling on the ground has been the norm for her all her life. She still sticks her tongue out defiantly, even in despair, but the man strikes at her angrily, calling her a little bitch. Suddenly, a gloved hand is raised, stopping the blow, and a voice tells May to stop trying to harm herself. The voice continues, warning that if she makes it out of this place as a corpse, Elina will be sad. It's Nox, our lavender-eyed lord, who stands at the entrance of the dark room, having arrived just in time. The man with dark hair and a beard, now looking over his shoulder in the stone hallway, asks what brings Nox here. Nox walks calmly through the dimly lit indoor space, his steady pace unwavering despite the grim situation, as the man from the last chapter asks what brings him here. The arrogant captor then reveals his true malice, speaking to a female prisoner, Talia, held behind bars, announcing, "You will be executed, seeing as your partner, Ron, is also dead." He then expresses mock regret with a villainous smirk, calling it an unfortunate mishap. The man looks on with a devious expression, drawing his weapon, and smiles maliciously at Nox, taunting that a young master of a noble family has underestimated him a bit too much. He then directly challenges our time-limited genius, asking if Nox thinks he can defeat him alone. The man lunges, attacking Nox with his sword just as guards flood the scene, yelling that it doesn't matter anymore, leaving Nox surrounded by a large group of armed men. The captor yells and charges toward him with his subordinates, but Nox merely looks down with a serious expression, preparing himself. He closes his eyes for a moment, gathering his focus, then exhales deeply, his bloodied face hardened and serious as he prepares for combat. His eyes begin to glow with an intense purple mana aura, and Nox, now cloaked in a brilliant golden aura, stands ready as a system message proclaims, "The hour of the genius has been activated." Clock gears and a countdown timer appear, marking 5 minutes on his borrowed power. Our golden aura hero dashes forward with his sword in a blur of motion. His eyes are locked in focus, golden gears swirling around him as the timer ticks down to 4 minutes and 59 seconds. His sword and boots a blur mid-combat, and he stands amidst the chaos, the timer continuing its relentless count at 4:58. Nox moves through the guards with impossible speed, golden gears manifesting around his movements. He dispatches enemies with quick, precise movements, the timer still at 4:57, maintaining an intense gaze as he confronts each opponent. With only 4 minutes and 55 seconds remaining, Nox pours a blue potion for the unconscious May. Her eyes slowly begin to open, as Nox looks down with a weary, exhausted expression, the toll of genius time already showing, as if he's just run a sprint for his life. He looks directly at her, telling her that after she wakes up from her sleep, he is Nox Von Reinhafer. May slowly wakes up, her eyes finally focusing. Stunned man stares in disbelief, sweating profusely at the aftermath, which looks like a tornado just ripped through the room, exclaiming, "What the heck? He defeated them all already." Nox stands still, looking down at the main captor, Tegan, lying wounded on the ground. Tegan looks up, his expression a mix of confusion and fear, barely managing a "H-ha." The defeated man lies there as Nox walks past him, seemingly finished. But then Nox looks down at Tegan with a stern, icy expression, warning him not to think he'll die that easily. A heavy, dark aura descends upon the defeated man, pinning him to the floor, and a close-up of Tegan's eye reveals a reflection of Nox standing over him. Our decisive young master stands tall, his eyes glowing with a dark purple mana aura. Tegan's face is filled with sheer terror, as Nox strides toward the viewer, and Tegan internally screams in disbelief, unable to accept that he lost to a mere brat. Close-up of his eye shows him questioning his own identity, wondering how this could happen to the great Tegan. Nox stands against a brick wall, his purple eyes glowing, contemplating the scene. In his mind, a figure stands in a white void, silhouetted against a brilliant light. The defeated Tegan is shown suspended, the voice reflecting on that moment, asking the same question again. Nox stands over the defeated man, holding his sword Stormbringer, as Tegan gasps out his last "I." Tegan looks up from the ground with an expression of intense fear, as Nox looks down with his signature lavender eyes, glowing with dark purple mana, ready to deliver the final blow. Nox raises his sword, preparing to strike the man on the ground, and a violent impact splatters red across the frame. With Tegan dealt with, a heavily armored knight figure draped in a red cloak appears, sword in hand, ready to pose the next challenge. Even in defeat, the man Nox just crushed can't believe what happened, wondering how someone like him could lose to a mere brat, or how this was seriously happening, especially to the great Tegan. Then we flash back to a younger Tegan, a traumatized boy watching a burly man strike someone down, while that man, who the boy remembers as his outstanding father, asks him if he knows why people follow him, to which young Tegan replies that he doesn't. He doesn't. The man then roughly places his hand on the boy's head, telling him that the answer is strength, and with overwhelming power, you can get away with anything in their border city, making Tegan ask if his father is the strongest person on the continent, only for the man to sternly reply that he isn't. He explains that even he is just a nobody on a continent filled with unbelievably strong swordsmen, and even geniuses Tegan's age who are stronger than him, describing the harsh reality of a continent ravaged by war. Back in the present, our calculating hero stands over Tegan, his sword glowing with a dark purple aura, explaining that the reason he has survived is precisely because he chose not to fight the unreachable geniuses his father warned him about. And Tegan, now realizing Nox is one of them, sighs in defeat, but Nox finishes his sentence, declaring that his reason for survival is because he chose to fight with Tegan, then strikes him down, his gaze intense. Meanwhile, in a different part of the prison, Elena, an elf-like woman, sits in a room with potions when 2 other women arrive, stepping on a fallen potion bottle, and a smiling orange-haired woman embraces her, consoling her with an apology for being selfish, and promising everything is okay now, as Alina cries, confessing she thought her friend had truly left her behind to do things alone, while a third woman with light green hair looks on, and the three women gather together in reunion. The green-haired woman agrees that everything will be fine, though she suspects Nox's true intentions might be different, as we cut to an exterior of a building at night where a silver-haired noble of the Reinhafer family is fuming, wondering who would dare make him wait, before our terminally ill knight appears in the doorway, and the noble, surprised, demands to know who he is, then recognizes him as Nox. Nox simply replies that the matter is important, which causes the noble to look flustered, while Nox stands with a serious, cold expression. Our young master reiterates that it's an important matter, making the noble nervous, who then tells Nox to take a seat, and after our genius swordsman hands over a parchment letter, the older man reads it, confirming that the corruption in Chaders worsens every day. Man explains that while Chaders is unprofitable and ignored, it's also complicated because its eastern border is the Empire's last line of defense, a huge headache for the imperial family, since if it falls like a house of cards, monsters will pour into the center, like water from a burst pipe, forcing the government to pour funds, troops, and mercenaries into defending the relevant areas, making Chaders a useless but totally unavoidable region. He states that the wasteland has no value, and the Ron bandits would make the situation even worse for Green. But if any Reinhafer member can't overcome a challenge of that level, they don't deserve the name, since the family already sent the Black Sword Knights to prevent them from dying, and Nox's request for Chaders is seen in the same light. Noble muses over Nox's proposal, which promises to give up his rights as the youngest son of the Reinhafer family if he fails to manage Chaders. But if he succeeds, he wants the authority to run it, causing the man with the monocle to look surprised by such a drastic gamble, while our genius swordsman's purple eye gleams with intense focus, and the monocle man confirms that he could certainly obtain the jurisdiction for Nox, while the gray-haired man looks skeptical, or perhaps cunning. Nox sits across from another Reinhafer noble, who is clearly having a terrible day, as our calculating hero just outmaneuvered him, and the brother can't help but clutch his head, screaming internally about how the family must have checked Nox's story. He glares, utterly enraged that Nox dared to use their family name to gain an advantage, but then he shifts his focus, reminding himself there's something more important at stake right now. Nox just sits there, radiating dark energy, as his brother complains that he's nothing but a bother, which only makes our young master smirk. The disgruntled brother just stares at Nox, convinced he's doing this just to mess with him, but then he forces himself to hold back, knowing that if he fails this test, he can't become a knight. He lets out a frustrated sigh, realizing he has no choice but to accept this bastard's offer. Nox acknowledges his brother's quick calculations, telling him he doesn't want much. The noble looks genuinely concerned, realizing that even if he keeps his army, his very life is now in Nox's hands. Nox knows he doesn't want to admit it, but he still can't quite figure out our hero's true strength. So the brother offers up mineral rights and artifacts from his mine, demanding that Nox guarantee his life and yield the outcome to him. Nox holds up 2 fingers, agreeing to guarantee his life but with a knowing smirk. His brother explains his offer, confirming he'll hand over mineral rights and artifacts from his large mine, insisting that Nox properly take care of things. Nox then leans in, telling him he'll be in his care while staying in Chaders. The brother warns Nox not to do anything rash, all while potion bottles bearing menacing labels sit on a nearby shelf. Meanwhile, his dark-haired and red-haired companions are examining more potion recipes, including a corroding potion, as Nox explains his plan to them, then asks if it will really be okay. His blonde maid steps forward, confessing that even as an ordinary maid, she's worried. The other 2 women agree, desperate not to lose their hero in vain. Nox just sits calmly, taking it all in. He understands why they're so worried, since he can't tell them his true objective, which is something he needs to obtain after killing the Griffin. Our terminally ill tactician decides he has no choice but to lie, telling them he's thought it through and they shouldn't ask further. He turns away from the blonde maid. She looks worried, explaining that killing the Griffin in Chaders at the beginning of the game is practically impossible, because no one has ever succeeded. Nox just smiles slightly at that. He corrects them, saying that's only true when you exclude him, and then prepares to explain his plan. Clarifies that it's impossible to kill the Griffin in Chaders with a normal playstyle, because its hidden route is only revealed to what he calls stagnant water gamers. He strikes a map with a wooden stick and tells his 3 worried companions that he is a stagnant water gamer who has cleared inner Lunatic 26 times. The women listen intently, expressions still filled with concern. He concludes his explanation, confirming that's the real reason he needs to kill the Griffin in Chaders. Nox feeds a horse, explaining that the reward for such a feat is great, and so he'll end the explanation there. A reborn gamer adjusts his gear. He notes that inner Lunatic, the world he's transmigrated into, is just that kind of place. Soon he's traversing a dark environment, where massive creature legs stomp into the mud. A vast army of shadowy creatures moves through a foreboding forest. Nox looks down from a height, asking if it has begun. His two companions, still distressed, shout for everyone to get ready. Our young master looks on with a serious expression. He directs a group of soldiers, moving them into position. Nox looks thoughtful against a cloudy sky, wondering why this moment feels so new, despite the soldiers' ready affirmation. He reflects on the fact that he became Nox Von Reinhafer, and the only strategist for this entire ordeal. His blonde aide asks if he'll really be all right. She looks deeply concerned, a hand reaching to her face. Our expert player smiles, a knowing confidence in his expression. He promises he won't die. Dust and debris kick up from a stone wall, as Nox, sword drawn, leaps through the air like a cat pouncing. He wonders if the feeling of renewal was, from the moment he made a promise, he couldn't keep because he's terminally ill. His hand grips his sword hilt tightly. Nox maneuvers along a high stone wall during the battle, clutching a glowing potion bottle. An iron golem cracks and leaks purple mana as it takes damage. Nox dashes forward, his sword drawn amidst chaotic battlefield debris. He strikes down a goblin, and a system message pops up, confirming he has killed the iron golem and his proficiency for Chader's southern sword technique has increased. Nox stands before a group of monsters, an iron golem among them. He swings his sword, emitting a dark purple mana aura, commanding them to become his stepping stones. Soldiers watch in shock, shouting alarms, as Nox explains that if they do, he can enjoy this damned game more, and he smiles manically while engaged in combat. This game has now become his reality. Nox looks up as a large, bird-like monster descends from the sky, announcing, "It's here." He grins sinisterly as the bird creature glares back with glowing red eyes. Our determined swordsman prepares for his final move. A lone black feather drifts down from a stormy sky, hinting at brewing chaos far beyond his immediate fight. Our terminally ill knight looks up, sword ready amidst the battlefield debris. Meanwhile, from the castle walls, a group of students watches in awe, as a massive eagle-like beast dives down like a plummeting missile, making him wonder if this epic battle is even real. With one exclaiming she's never seen a knight fight like that, while another marvels at his impossible speed. Elsewhere, a student with orange hair looks worriedly at her friend, who clutches her chest, sensing an unsettling disturbance in the mana, while a nearby man collapses, clutching his head in agony from the sudden, overwhelming pressure. They also wonder why our calculating hero refuses to address the bad rumors about him, speculating that he has his own reasons for appearing as a good-for-nothing, and someone urges them to simply play along. The green-haired student steps forward, trying to pinpoint the source of this terrifying sensation, and one student, grabbing her companion's arm, tells her not to worry, which quickly manifests as a monstrous face, roaring with glowing eyes and chaotic text symbols, announcing its terrifying presence. Soldiers nearby are completely caught off guard by the sudden apparition, their faces etched with shock and fear as they grip their spears, frozen by the unfolding horror. This widespread chaos, which Nox is now dead set on ending, actually kicked off when our cunning commander first spotted a huge griffin lurking in the forest. As a monstrous roar echoes, a student cries out that our swordsman on borrowed time must be out of his mind to want to fight that. It quickly escalated into a high-speed, intense battle, our agile fighter clashing relentlessly with the powerful beast, because he's already engaging the giant griffin midair. It's a brutal fight, with our hero looking up bloodied and gritting his teeth in frustration. And even as his eyes glow a fierce purple, he glances back, a silent challenge to whoever might be watching his struggle. You can almost feel the pain as he clenches his fist, pushing past his limits to keep up the fight. As the griffin hovers menacingly above him, our former fatty, covered in blood, barks orders to his troops. He tells them to wait until the griffin is within short range of the fortress walls, then fire the ballistas once ordered, to which they all confirm. Then, with our determined knight standing ready before a ballista, as the griffin flies overhead, Nox shouts now, and a ballista bolt pierces through its wing, sending it screeching in pain. The wounded griffin plummets like a stone towards the fortress walls, and Nox, casually spitting out a spent potion bottle, explains his reasoning. They had to neutralize the griffin's ridiculous flight ability. Shocked student exclaims that Nox would even suggest making ballistas when someone else could do it, but our calculating knight calmly retorts, "In that case, you'll fight the griffin on the battlefield then." Standing over the seemingly defeated griffin, Nox muses that green has good instincts and will be useful. Also considering the function of Elena's potion, our purple-eyed warrior stands ready with his sword, an unwavering intensity in his gaze, preparing for what looks like the decisive blow. But the griffin isn't done yet. With a desperate roar, it lunges at Nox, its eye reflecting our reset villain's determined face. The griffin, though still menacing, lands heavily on the ground, clearly wounded and struggling. It glares at Nox, pure menace in its eyes, still defiant despite its injuries. Our determined knight stands resolute amidst the dust and smoke, and takes a labored step forward, absolutely refusing to back down, and revealing the true horror to the griffin, that the ballista which pierced its wing was slathered with tons of its favorite poison, so it should look forward to what's coming. As the griffin prepares a massive final strike, a golden magical clock appears in the sky, but our young master is prepared, watching as a giant spectral claw looms over him, ready to strike, and our grizzled hero, bloodied and intense, acknowledges the immense pressure, but knows it's time to unleash his own ultimate move. Just as it descends, a golden gear symbol lights up by the griffin's talons, signaling his genius time ability is now fully active. Dark red energy slashes through the air as Nox strikes with a glowing blade, wounding the Griffin while gold energy ripples outward, and he shouts, "Graen." A mysterious observer watches from afar, wondering if this is truly the Nox they once knew. Watching this unfold, the mysterious observer clenches their fists on a stone railing, a clear sign of their intense agitation and internal conflict over Nox's actions. And as they shout for their own troops to fire, our determined swordsman exhales, a dark purple mana aura swirling around him, declaring HAAA/time to put an end to this. And with a sharp, determined smile, Nox Von Reinhafer looks sideways as dark energy intensely manifests around him, truly ready to bring this battle to its final conclusion. A legendary Griffin screeches as our calculating hero's powerful dark purple attack slashes into it, sending it bleeding and screaming while guards watch in horror. And even two women on the ramparts look down in concern. Nox stands poised, surrounded by his dark aura, moving with lightning speed, dodging a sweeping claw that could flatten him, like a dancer stepping around falling rain, while the massive avian beast tracks him with its one visible eye. The swordsman on borrowed time swings his energized blade, striking another blow and pushing through the fray, bloodied but unyielding, even catching a Griffin claw in a dark purple energy field. Finally, he stands before the defeated Griffin as a ticking clock icon appears, exhausted and wiping blood from his mouth. He glances toward a stone giant and a small demon lurking in the distance, then watches the dust settle from his monumental battle, standing over the fallen beast as onlookers stare in awe. Above him, people watch from the ramparts, shocked to see a system message declaring he's gained 60 days after defeating the Griffin, with only 179 days left to live. Nox looks up at the balcony, where a man is deeply unsettled by the outcome, cursing, "Damn it, how is that even possible?" and wondering how such a high-level monster could be defeated by a brat. The defeated Griffin lies on the ground with glowing eyes, as the man questions how a mere brat could make a monster like that stumble, realizing that Nox must be at least Academy professor level to take it on so easily, and that he may have no choice but to acknowledge our new lord's strength. The young master then turns away, his face still streaked with blood. Meanwhile, other Reinhafer family members deliberate, realizing that if what Nox has shown is true, he could bring great change to the successor rankings, and one man reflects that he needs to make sure he's on the right side. Nox, looking utterly exhausted, walks away past the remnants of the fallen beast, as a subordinate approaches, offering to take charge of moving the Griffin's corpse, and giving Nox full control over distributing the loot. Our hero listens stoically, before being told to get some rest. Nox smiles to himself, thinking, "Looks like that scared him quite a bit." Great, he decides, now. It's time to use the hidden clear rewards. He activates his system interface, causing a glowing aura to emerge from his hand, and a witch with blue hair holds the Griffin's heart, confirming it contains the power of wind and can be used to create an elixir altering stamina and agility. Nox, standing with his two new recruits, asks how long that will take, then offers Alina and May positions as servants of the Reinhafer family, noting that with current tools, it might take a while to create the elixir. Alina looks at him with surprise, wondering if such a thing is truly important. Nox calmly asserts that there's no reason for them not to make use of him as well, his eyes intense as he explains that no one can properly use the monster's core, especially since it's an item from a hidden boss that wasn't meant to be beaten, which makes crafting with it nearly impossible for anyone without true genius. The witch looks at Nox, acknowledging his unique capability and adding that he saved their lives. A slight knowing smile appears on Nox's face as he clarifies, "For starters, I've obtained 2 genius characters." He then gives his new team members instructions, telling them they'll depart in 3 days and that the elixir will be created secretly after they return to the family estate. Nox walks down a corridor, followed by May, then along a stone path by the water, where May compliments him, saying his real self is truly different from the rumors. Suddenly, Talia with her green hair speaks to Nox, promising that while she knows the rumors aren't true, she asks, "But can you promise me one thing?" She continues, "When you find things really tough one day, please let me know if I can be of help despite my lowly status." Nox responds by telling her to move quickly so they don't catch a cold, and she smiles. Our silver-haired schemer, Nox, finds himself summoned to the Patriarch's study, where he bows low, confirming he's heard the summons. He kneels before the elder, whose gaze seems to pierce right through him, maintaining his respectful posture. Patriarch starts by praising Nox for his massive contribution to the safe return of everyone from Chaders and the eradication of the monsters there, even mentioning that Green acknowledged his abilities, which leaves our strategic student looking utterly baffled, especially when the Patriarch confirms Green's words, making Nox wonder aloud, "Gran, what on earth are you up to?" Only for the Patriarch to dismiss it all as meaningless small talk. And without further ado, the Patriarch hands over a signed document, secured with a wax seal, formally announcing that the entire Chaders region now belongs to Nox, making our Chaders conqueror bow with a hand over his heart in delighted gratitude as he adjusts his cravat, feeling quite pleased. But the Patriarch isn't finished yet, looking intently at Nox as he asks point-blank, "Are you interested in taking my seat?" which makes our determined Dark Knight's eyes go wide in a stunned, internal, fuck. Nox briefly wonders why the Patriarch is acting so suddenly, as if something has shifted. Meanwhile, far from the capital, a man in traditional robes and turban sits at a chessboard, discussing how Nox has obtained the Chaitor's region, while an elder behind him worries if they'll be all right. But the turbaned man insists he has nothing more to lose, leaving the elder to bow respectfully. The elderly man bows his head near a wooden door, a small smile playing on his lips, before he holds hands with a young girl who has striking golden eyes, as the older man in the turban gently touches her red-haired face, asking about her well-being, and the girl remains silent. Back in the library, our strategic student sits at a desk, listening to someone suggest that the Patriarch's question might be too early for him, but Nox cuts him off, declaring, "It has to be now." He stands resolute, as a gloved hand rests on the desk in quiet authority, and then Nox politely declines the offer, stating his concern for the numerous responsibilities that would come with such a powerful position, his face showing a moment of intense focus. He thanks them for the opportunity. The man sitting across from Nox warns that humans are weak beings who will always be testing him, then dismisses him, telling him he must be very tired from the journey. But as Nox sits down, Jitri the maid approaches, asking with concern if the Patriarch had scolded him, only for our silver-haired schemer to reassure her that it was nothing and not to worry. Jitri still looks a little concerned, but Nox praises her great work. She stands by him, which surprises her, reiterating that she did great. Nox then shifts his focus to Elidaine Academy, the best night mage training institution, thinking to himself that it's time for things to get serious and that he must become the best in that place. But elsewhere, the Patriarch is still deep in thought, pondering something serious, making a firm no gesture. Our strategic student observes that the Patriarch seems afraid, but not of him or his position. Instead, it's a fundamental fear, like looking into an abyss, a primal dread of death. The Patriarch then suggests that he might be out of line for saying it, but what happened to Madame, Nox's mother, could have been a huge shock for him, ending with a soft, knowing laugh. Nox stands before a large, ornate portrait of his mother, as the Patriarch reveals that young Master Garen has started to make an even bigger move, implying a coming storm with even greater stakes this time round. We see battlefields filled with bodies and flying red-skinned demons, and Nox standing beneath a dark, swirling magical vortex, ready for whatever comes next. Leenharbour, a stunning redhead, carefully selects an outfit for a very important first meeting with her new fiancé, asking her maid what accessories she should wear, because they are, of course, meeting after the official engagement. Her maid, Emma, reminds her that it's her first time meeting young Master Nox, since he officially became her fiancé. Leenharbour, blushing and a little flustered, rounds on Emma, asking if Emma answered half-heartedly because she couldn't be bothered. Meanwhile, our reborn tactician enters a room, finding a dark-haired woman resting exhausted at a desk, who stirs, recognizing his presence. Nox checks on the elixir, but first asks if she's all right, since she doesn't look too good. A blonde maid assures him she'll take care of her, but the dark-haired woman urges him to stop worrying and examine the item quickly. Nox looks concerned, but then holds the elixir of wind, examining it intently, as his hand reaches out to touch its stopper. The blue-haired woman with elf ears asks about the elixir's status, and Nox smiles with satisfaction. "I finally obtained it." She expresses relief about Alina joining them, then explains that the elixir of wind not only permanently increases stamina by 1, but also dexterity, a hidden stat, making it a perfect combo with his Hour of the Genius ability. A resourceful hero then prepares to consume the elixir, drinking it down, which envelops him in a magical aura. With the elixir coursing through his body, Nox stands confident that all his preparations are complete. With his blonde maid following behind him, Nox walks through a grand hallway, stepping out of the large building and beginning his grand entrance to Elidaine Academy. Nearby, 2 students gossip, wondering if the youngest son of the Reinhafer family is really joining the academy in this batch. The young master on borrowed time flashes a slight, knowing smile, then asks, "Is there a dog barking somewhere?" instantly silencing and shaking the students as he and his maid walk past them. His maid reacts as a horse-drawn carriage pulls up to the entrance, and Nox encounters another person while walking inside, looking surprised and slightly nervous. An older cloaked woman gestures toward the carriage where Talia is seated, and with a smile, notes that he seems shaken. Talia, looking flustered and blushing, steps out of the carriage, surprised to see Nox. She appears utterly surprised. Nox instinctively reaches out to take her hand. In a state of pure shock, Nox grabs Jitri's shoulders, demanding, What did you say?" Jitri, unflustered, asks him to pardon her, explaining she was simply talking about his engagement plan with Lady Talia, which everyone already knows. Nox retorts, "That's the problem, I didn't know about it." Talia looks on with a flushed, surprised expression. Nox, still looking shocked, calls out to her. Then he whispers to Jitri, gripping her shoulders, reminding her he told her not to talk. Talia looks toward a fountain with surprise, while Nox turns his gaze to it with a sharp, suspicious expression as a nearby horse reacts, neighing loudly. Everyone stands near the carriage, the unexpected revelation hanging heavy in the air. Nox stands before a grand staircase with a serious and intense look, sensing her presence. He knows he's about to meet one of Elidaine Academy's genius characters. A pair of gloved hands catches falling gold coins and crystals as if on command, revealing the merchant star and head of the Rodwell family that dominates the entire continent. Leenharbour de Rodwell stands with a cold, haughty expression, then touches her cheek with a condescending, smug smile, making a dramatic entrance. As Leenharbour laughs, Nox watches her with a stoic, suspicious expression, knowing she's a woman who holds great hostility toward the old Nox. He looks to the side with a calm, analytical expression, as Leenharbour smiles smoothly, making herself known. She reminds him, "The noble from the merchant family that you had looked down on. I'm Leenharbour de Rodwell. I never thought I'd meet you again like this." Fresh off his political win, our calculating hero suddenly finds himself face-to-face with Leenharbour de Rodwell, a noble he once looked down on, and she's definitely not forgotten their past encounter. Leenharbour is the only child of the incredibly wealthy Rodwell family, known later in the game as one of the financial stars of the continent, earning her the nickname Fox of Wealth. But there's clearly some tension, and our memory-haunted swordsman is visibly startled, probably because he remembers exactly how they met. In a flashback, a younger Leenharbour looks small and frightened in a vast hall, her eyes wide with shock, while a much younger Nox, arrogant and cruel, tells her flat out, "Someone as lowly as you is a noble? How pathetic. To think you'd buy status with money. Do you think that changed the past of your family?" He stands coldly before her, leaving the young Leenharbour crying, hurt and ashamed. Back in the present, our protagonist has a somber, regretful expression, reflecting on their strained relationship. Leenharbour, now with a faint, enigmatic smile, tells him there are two people here who would drive a sword into her heart, a mischievous little chuckle escaping her lips. He touches her cheek with a smug expression, while Nox remains composed, but you can see the tension in his stance. He's taking her measure, but Leenharbour cuts him off with a chilling smile. "Sorry, but there's nothing I would want from the good-for-nothing of the Reinhafer family." Nox knows he's got zero positive feelings from her, so he activates his insight to check her traits, relieved they haven't changed much from what he remembers in the game, confirming her as a calculation genius, an acting genius with the rich merchant's eye skill. He recalls the Rodwell family's middle name, was actually bought by Leenharbour's merchant father, and that while Leenharbour loathes her own status, she has no choice but to make use of it. With a dismissive turn, Leenharbour tells him she'll leave as he wishes, adding sharply that they're not friendly enough to wish each other good luck. She bids him a flat goodbye then. Nox, with Talia in tow, then decides it's time to head to Elidaine Academy for the admission ceremony. He recognizes he can't shake off Talia, who's sticking to him in the context of being his fiancée, so he just needs to make the most of the situation. Our strategic survivor resolves to stay on his toes. Students mill about, heading toward the assembly area, and Nox walks with a serious expression, Talia close behind him. He knows the academy is full of the strongest characters, but if he brings them over to his side too quickly, it could mess with the original story, so he needs to approach them carefully. A maid looks at him nervously, commenting that he's quite popular, but Nox quickly dismisses the thought, probably wondering if he's overthinking it. He replies casually that yes, he is somewhat popular. As he looks towards the podium, a voice echoes across the hall, asking if everyone can hear them, and servants bow in unison as the crowd looks on. But then a close-up reveals a mysterious small girl, casually eating a lollipop, smiling with ice energy swirling around her, and students immediately start whispering, confused about who this kid is. The crowd is baffled by her presence at the sacred admission ceremony. Nox, though annoyed by the other students' cluelessness, realizes she's actually greeting them. This is Nox Von Reinhafer, a pint-sized powerhouse with terrifying stats, including a mana detection genius trait and passive skills like Sea of Mana and Awe of a Ruler, and he quickly warns Talia to stay quiet if she doesn't want to die. Noah just smiles, lollipop still in hand, raising a finger with glowing magical energy, and states with a cheerful but ominous smile, "You'll die, okay?" The students are utterly confused, one even objecting that they didn't hear anything about such a rule, but Noah just glares with glowing eyes. She then addresses them all, and they find themselves standing in a glowing blue magic circle. Noah reaches out with a glowing hand, initiating the magic, while Nox watches, concerned among the students. He thinks to himself, this is where it starts. A bright magical flash erupts, and our terminally ill knight resolves to survive no matter what. After Noah's unexpected magical attack, Nox lies on the grass in a forest, recovering from exhaustion as an older, bald instructor confronts the fallen students. He looks down at the scattered students, assessing the damage, while Talia lies on the forest floor, feeling weak. The instructor then notices Nox standing up amidst the fallen, commenting that at least one survived. Nox struggles to maintain his composure, noting that he managed to endure the intermediate magic forced teleport, but its aftermath can't be ignored. He confronts the instructor and thinks to himself, but A bright golden flash emanates from Nox as he recognizes the instructor from the game, noting that he's as shiny as he is in the game, like he has a halo. He recalls the storyline mentioned that the instructor once had a full head of hair, and identifies him as Burnon, a combat instructor and academy graduate known as Takoyaki Burnon by game users because of his baldness, though he's highly skilled in footwork. Burnon then shouts at Nox, demanding to know why he's looking at him with pity. Nox tries to play it cool, telling Burnon he has very good instincts and won't let him off if he thinks unpleasant thoughts, then quickly pivots to ask about the admission test, thinking, damn it, was I too obvious? Burnon agrees, but first he declares he'll wake up these sleepyheads, and blue mana glows around his hand. Bright light erupts, startling the students who cry out, confused by the sound. The instructor looks sternly towards the source, as a bright golden light appears in the forest, and Nox stands tall as the students wake up around him. The instructor then glares at Nox, asking him if he has a death wish. Now that the situation is wrapped up, the instructor begins explaining Elidaine Academy's admission test. Nox listens intently. The test involves gathering specific colored jewels that drop from magical creatures in the woods. The less mana a jewel has, the more valuable it is, which can puzzle people who think more mana is always better. But the instructor reveals that's only half correct. They are actually looking for two things. The first is mana sensitivity, which has already been tested and recorded by how fast students woke up from Noah's intermediate magic. The second is the ability to detect even faint amounts of mana, which allows mages to push themselves to their limits on the battlefield. Burnon then intimidates the large group of students, warning them about foes they can't imagine fighting. Students whisper nervously among themselves. Burnon, with arms crossed, tells them they better start moving fast, then overlooks the students as a bird flies away. He closes his eyes and declares, "I'll wait for you at the top." A student calls out that they still have questions, but Burnon is already gone. Talia and the other students look toward where he disappeared, and she gestures with her hand, still processing what just happened. But while others are still reacting, Nox begins to move. He strides through the forest as leaves fall around him, a smirk on his face as he focuses on the inner lunatic inside him. Our game master knows the most important thing is knowledge, and in order for his terminally ill body to grow, he needs to monopolize all the advantages. He heads straight for the entrance of a dark cave, sprinting with a determined look. Elsewhere, instructor Burnon gazes into the distance, pondering how strange it is that a new student could not only endure the dean's intermediate magic, but also decide to raid the forest alone. Meanwhile, Nox looks off to the side with a serious expression, thinking, I guess a diamond on a dunghill is still a diamond. And he's already standing before a defeated foe in a cavern littered with gems, well on his way to acing the test. Terminally ill knight Nox Von Reinhafer is already in the thick of it, leaving a trail of slain goblins as he charges deeper into the cavern, completely ignoring the stunned students, while someone watches him from the shadows, barely registering the corpses as he advances. Meanwhile, Talia von Stilliner and her squad are fighting through a cave of their own, but our red-haired knight can't help but wonder where Nox went, as she had planned to go with him. Her companion urges her to kill these monsters with a joyful heart. They climb higher into the labyrinth, finding valuable purple crystals, with a blonde-haired student concluding it's probably not the highest grade, but acknowledging it would be tough for everyone to climb in their current state, which she can't allow, because she promised to help Princess Penelope sit at the highest place, believing the current Archheim Empire is rotten to its core and needs the princess to ascend the throne to return to its former glory. With another student in agreement, the determined blonde-haired student holds a glowing purple crystal and announces they're moving out. Back with our quick-thinking hero, the snowy environment has activated his cold hands and feet trait, slowing him down and making him breathe harder, just like he knew his cold hands and feet LV3 status effect would. He knows he needs to get rid of this coldness to properly use his body, so he calmly manifests a small ball of basic fire magic. Ignition, making the penalties of the cold disappear as he sets his determined gaze ahead. As our independent swordsman continues through the deep snow with his floating flame, he realizes this entire place is just like what the frozen witch, Noah Von Trinity, would create. An artificial labyrinth where everything is made of magic. Because of that, all the living things and monsters that appear here are also all made by her magic, giving our hero a confident smirk as he channels his own mana. Confronting a group of massive ice trolls, notorious for their high HP and regeneration, Nox knows this means nothing because he understands Noah's design. Our confident swordsman dodges a powerful slam, knowing Noah might be crazily obsessed with talented students, but she won't drive unadmitted students too far into a corner. He deduces that these lower intermediate grade trolls, which would normally slaughter students, are actually a test designed to be deciphered, like the first one always using a vertical strike in the center, the next a slow horizontal strike, and the last, weaker stabs as he continues to move, observed by someone in white. Our brilliant tactician confidently shows off a magical crystal, telling everyone their combined efforts should put them at the top of the leaderboards, but Talia can't shake a strange sense of unease about the situation. Even Nox feels a prickle of discomfort himself, wondering why everything feels off as he ventures out alone. Back in the academy, Talia's family elder rounds on her, demanding to know why she ever quarreled with young Master Reinhafer, because their family desperately needs to climb higher in status. He insists she should have brought Nox to their side no matter the cost, towering over a tearful Talia, visibly enraged. Talia, reeling from the scolding, can't help but wonder if Nox's solo venture implies he knows a hidden secret about the test. And making a firm decision, she addresses a group of students, offering hefty rewards from the Rivalin family to anyone who will help her climb even higher. A bright smile spreads across her face as students eagerly agree, and soon she has a whole group ready to follow. She muses that it all comes down to money, convinced that investigating Nox won't hurt, and sets off confidently with her newly recruited team. Meanwhile, our terminally ill knight stands in a snowy forest, revealing his true motivation for this solo venture, a huge potential return as he mentally prepares to begin. He explains that the only way to enhance his Hour of the Genius is by unlocking the hidden agility stat, a task he finds almost impossible, requiring his full attention and a powerful swing of his blade. His intense focus is suddenly broken by a cheerful voice, as a new character with light hair and a monocle appears, greeting the young Lord of Reinhafer, grinning with a mischievous look. This immediately makes our protagonist frown, thinking something is off, that this shouldn't be happening. Nox immediately recognizes the man as Paracelsus, one of the 3 Sword Emperors and one of the strongest characters in Inner Lunatic. His mind races, wondering what a big shot like him is doing here when he's supposed to be inspired by the protagonist's kind personality to save Elidaine. And our brilliant tactician thinks, wait a sec, something's off, as Paracelsus swings his blade, forcing our hero to parry, deflecting the blow like a lightning rod, and question, Paracelsus, where's the protagonist that's supposed to fight with him? Paracelsus snarls, calling Nox a filthy vermin. As their blades clash again, our reset villain deduces that if he's right, the original protagonist of this world doesn't exist now, and he deflects another powerful attack, glaring at Paracelsus and thinking he has to stop him here, furiously asking, are you going to take responsibility for messing with the story? Nox then demands to know what Paracelsus is trying to say, a cold glint in his eye. Paracelsus grins deviously, revealing that the black crystal seems to be the way to get the highest marks. He warns Nox that if he refuses, he'll have no choice but to do whatever it takes to take it by force, still holding that smug, knowing grin. Our terminally ill knight observes Paracelsus, realizing that while his talent hasn't fully matured yet, he's growing to be one of the strongest characters. Nox knows he could definitely win if he uses the Hour of the Genius, but realizes he can't use it in this fight, internalizing that if the protagonist really doesn't exist in this world, then he has to be the one to save the noblewoman Elidaine. Our silver-haired genius fires back, declaring that Paracelsus isn't the only one who knows secrets. Dressing him directly as Celsus, he reveals that he knows Paracelsus enrolled into the academy in order to uncover the secret of his master's death. Paracelsus's eyes glow intently as Nox challenges him. Do you feel like talking now?